Listed on the consent agenda are to be considered under one motion and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion on those items, and if discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. So is there any items on the consent agenda that a member of the commission would like to have removed for separate consideration? Okay. Is there any item on the consent agenda that a member of the public would like to have removed for separate consideration? Okay. Hearing none, to the consent agenda, we need to add claims to 194 vendors in the amount of $1,125,079.89. So with the addition of the claims, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second to approve the consent agenda with the claims. It was made by Vice Mayor Soden, second by Commissioner Boley. All in favor of that motion, aye? Aye. Opposed? That item passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is general public comment, and the public is always allowed to speak on to any items or issues that are not scheduled on the agenda after first being recognized by the mayor. As a general practice, the commission will not discuss or debate these items, nor will the commission make decisions on the items presented during this time. Rather, they will refer the items to staff for follow-up. Individuals are asked to come to the microphone, sign in, state their name and address, and speakers should address all questions and comments to the commission. So are there any general public comment on items that are not on our agenda tonight? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Dietrich Arnott. I live at 1714 Mississippi Street, and that is included in the University Place neighborhood. I will note that I'm not speaking for the University Place neighborhood. I'm not speaking for the University Place Neighborhood Association, even though I am an officer at present on that association. Instead, I want to speak to past efforts that I have made as part of that University Place Neighborhood Association involving the installation of traffic calming devices in our neighborhood. Beginning in 2001, our neighborhood identified a concern about having too much traffic, too fast traffic coming through our neighborhood. Our University Place Neighborhood Association formed a traffic safety committee. We expressed our concerns to the Traffic Safety Commission. They requested that we gather evidence to indicate that there was support for traffic calming devices. We gathered signatures on a petition. We conducted a survey, gathered those responses, analyzed those responses, conveyed our analysis to the Traffic Safety Commission, provided our petition of signatures. We also met numerous times with David Woosley, traffic city engineer. He gave us great data on the amount of traffic that flows through our neighborhood, the speed at which that traffic flows through our neighborhood, past accidents, past fatalities. We gathered up all that information, packaged it together, once again met with the Traffic Safety Commission, met with David Woosley, presented our package to the City Commission to indicate that we would like to have traffic calming devices installed in our neighborhood. We identified the specific locations and the specific devices based on the data that David Woosley had given us, based on the input that we'd received, based on the support that had been expressed at our numerous neighborhood meetings. The Traffic Safety Commission approved our package. The City Commission approved our package. A little bit later, the City Commission identified some funds that could be made available. We secured that money and actually allowed to have permanent installations placed at 18th Street in order to divert the traffic from driving through our neighborhood to get to KU parking lot number 90. We also, with the city's money, installed a raised pedestrian walkway so that we can access Veterans Park, which is right next to our neighborhood. Also, the city allocated funds for temporary devices that still exist at 17th in Indiana, 18th in Indiana, 17th in Illinois, and 18th in Illinois. So we felt very good about that. We felt we'd had a major success in terms of calming the traffic in our neighborhood, improving the safety in our neighborhood, improving the quality of our neighborhood. Since then, we have been calmly, patiently waiting for more funds to become available. We have expressed our continued interest in having permanent devices installed in our neighborhood. We've met with you, we've spoken with you, expressed our continuing support. So I was elated to find out this year that $100,000 had been allocated in the budget for traffic calming devices in our neighborhood. I was elated to find out that there would be more money and that we could actually allocate those funds to have permanent installations placed in our neighborhood. However, it came with a caveat. From what David Woosley, traffic safety city engineer, had told us, was that we now were duty-bound to follow a rule that was passed after the city commission had approved our package of traffic calming devices, in that we needed to garner 70% support for each and every device that had already been approved for our neighborhood. And I want to tell you how I felt. After all the effort that I and others had placed and put into this installation of traffic calming devices, I felt like I was running for a touchdown and somebody had moved the goal line of the end zone. I felt like I was kicking a field goal only to have somebody move the goalpost to the back of the end zone. I felt like I was swinging for a home run in the World Series only to have somebody take the outfield wall and shove it up. Or pitching, closing out the inning and have the umpire tell me I needed 4 strikes for a strikeout. Or to turn a triple play only to find out that I needed 4 outs to close out the inning. That's how I felt. All the effort we put into a thoughtful package based on input coming from the city, based on many meetings, after much effort to secure a good, solid package. So here we stand, making efforts to react to a rule that was retroactively applied. And it's even more disturbing to me personally in that I don't get to vote. I cannot sign the approval for a single one of these devices that I've worked so hard to secure. I do not live within 300 feet of any of the devices that would be installed in our neighborhood permanently. And I'm not the only one. Somebody can be living mid-block and be more than 300 feet from a traffic calming device. Most blocks, north-south, are 650 feet long. Anybody living directly mid-block would not be allowed to vote on this. Yet, people who are landlords get to vote on this. People can abstain and actually torpedo this effort. It's 70% of all the people who are eligible to vote. Not of all the votes, not of all the people who live in the neighborhood, 70% of all the people who are eligible. So I'm excluded. So just to add insult to injury, I feel like I'm on a winning team, we've just won the Super Bowl, we're asked to play another game, and I don't get to suit up. That's how I feel. So, David Woosley lastly told me that there is still hope. Even in this ordinance that seems to be applied retroactively, the city commission still has the discretion to act as they see fit. They do not need to retroactively apply the requirement that each and every device garner 70% support of all eligible voters. You have it within your discretion without even probably taking a vote. You can just, Dave Cronin is here, instruct Dave Cronin, who thoughtfully has been coming to our meetings of late, to proceed of allocating the $100,000 so the city can install permanent devices in our neighborhood to improve the safety of our neighborhood, to improve the quality of our neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Any questions, Adito?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Other general public comment of items that are not on the agenda tonight?
Is Castle on the agenda?
Yes, it is. Okay, anyone else? Okay. Tom, could you find out what we can do or what we have to do to look at this item from the Neighborhood Association?
Yes, I will.
And get us the information necessary of what would have to happen
Certainly.
to make it happen, okay? Okay. So, commission items. Do I get any commission items?
On August 27th, the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council is going to have a retreat
And so we're supposed to bring our ideas for what we want the council to really focus on in the next year or two. So if anyone has any ideas that they want to relay to me, that I'll relay as well to them, just let me know.
Okay.
And Lisa might come as well to the retreat.
Okay. Other commission items? No? Okay. City managers report. Tom?
Just a few things tonight. The Indoor Aquatic Center is going to be closed from August 14th through September 6th. It's about a week longer than normal, in part because we're also installing some new HVAC and ductwork equipment. You have a fireworks incident report. Calls both in fire and in police were up this year. The fire department didn't have any actual injury incidents that they dealt with as a result of fireworks, but the hospital did report 7 walk-ins for injuries. You know that we did add staff for policing this year, and so those calls were up pretty substantially. In fact, they went from 264 fireworks-related calls in the previous year up to 371 calls this particular year. The police department is recommending that we continue the added enforcement as both funding and resources allow in the future years, so that we can actually make a comparison to determine how much that additional enforcement helps the situation. You have the Planning and Development Services project report for August. It's pretty comprehensive. There's a lot of activity that's going on in the planning department. You also have a report entitled Capital Improvement Planning Best Practices. And as you know, this was our first year for implementing CIP. It's kind of nice to read a professional document that shows that what Lawrence is doing is kind of considered best practice, and that we're consistent with many of the best practices delineated in that particular report. And one of the nicer items I get to report on, we participated in the Friendship Garden in one of our sister cities, and I hope not to slay the pronunciation, Eutin, Germany. Eutin, Germany. We actually provided some financial assistance as well as some water from the Kansas River for their new garden, and hopefully that helps spur the plants to grow healthy. That was combined from some water from their own lake in their community as well. And the dean of the KU Music School was involved, and they played Home on the Range and What a Wonderful World. We had a number of different representatives at that event in Germany as well. You have the list of future work session items, as well as future agenda items also listed. That's the report for this evening.
Okay. Any questions of Tom on the city manager's report? Okey-doke. Thanks, Tom. So then, do we have any calendar items to add, I guess, at this point? You wanted to bring the one item as a calendar item permanently?
The retreat?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the regular meetings?
Yeah.
You'd like to place on here?
Yeah, I don't remember right off the top of my head when the next one is. I
Okay.
think it's September 9th, but
And which committee is it?
the Criminal Justice Coordinating
Okay.
Council.
The Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, if we could have it included on our calendar so that other commissioners, if they want to attend,
Yeah.
don't get ourselves open or in trouble
Yeah,
with
just the
open-
regular
open-
meetings from
we'll do
now on.
Open meetings, okay. Any other calendar items? Okay. Then we are now through with the regular agenda, and we're ahead to the work session agenda. I would ask anyone who has brought their cell phone with them tonight, if you'd be so kind to silence those as to, so everybody can hear and have the opportunity to be a part of this. So with that, the first item on our agenda is to receive the concept study for the reconstruction of Castle Drive from 6th Street to Bob Billings Parkway. David Cronin, you are here tonight to be the presenter of this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Dave Cronin, City Engineer, Public Works Department. I'm here tonight to talk about two projects that are on our CIP plan to construct here in the next couple of years. The first we're going to talk about is Castle Drive from 6th Street to Bob Billings Parkway. So as most citizens understand that the street out there is in failing condition. Our PCI is down to a 43.8. That is out of 100. So, on arterial type streets, we expect to see 60, 70 minimum as far as maintaining the street. So this is in pretty bad shape. We have a lot of base failures. Have a lot of annual maintenance that we've been doing after we have freeze-thaw events and rain events. We're out there doing routine patching and maintenance to keep the surface drivable. So a lot of the curb is...
Can't hear you.
A lot of the curb and gutter has deteriorated or is missing. And so we are recommending to reconstruct that a little over a mile of arterial street. This project has been in our CIP. It's part of our projects and our infrastructure sales tax plan to complete. And so back in February of 2015, we began with a concept study. We worked with CFS engineers to look at different design options, get traffic data, crash data, and proceed with looking at different design options before we began doing any design plans. So we have, from early 2015 up until this point, received public comment and have had some public meetings to get feedback from stakeholders and citizens. So this is a list of the meetings and outreach that we've had. We had neighborhood meetings, met with the Healthy Built Environment Group, area business owners. We had a meeting over at the Presbyterian Manor, met with the Bicycle Advisory Committee, and with the Lawrence and Pedestrian Coalition. Another unique aspect of this project is that we created a dedicated web page that had the different concept options on the web page and an area for public comment. So we've kind of done a lot more outreach or spent more time and meetings on this project more than any other previous project as far as getting input before proceeding to design plans. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron Gaspers with CFS Engineers. He's going to go over some of the traffic data portion of the project.
Thank you. Commissioners, thank you. My goal tonight is to provide you with the traffic data showing that both of the proposed options can handle current and future traffic volumes, and both of the proposed options are an improvement over existing conditions. We'll start with the historic traffic data. Traffic has been relatively stable since 1992. The actual growth rate based on this historic data is approximately 0.4%. Because of this, and due to the corridor is for the most part fully developed, we used a growth factor for projections of 0.5%. We are confident that the growth factors covers the ongoing changes due to the K10, SLT, and Bob Billings Parkway interchange. We potentially see more impact to Bob Billings Parkway and Wakarusa Drive due to the SLT than this section of Castle. This slide shows the current daily traffic counts on Castle at Harvard and 8th Street. The current daily traffic on Castle is just under 15,000 vehicles per day. Harvard's around 3,000, 8th Street's around 2,000, and the amount of bus and truck traffic is less than 3%. And this is mostly at the commercial sides on the north and south sides of the corridor. However, both proposed options are designed to convey what truck and bus traffic there may be up and down the alignment. The chart on the right is the projected daily traffic counts for year 2040 using the 0.5% growth rate. All the numbers are adjusted accordingly. This gives us under a 17,000 vehicles per day traffic volume on Castle. This slide is the peak hour traffic volumes, current and projected. Counts were taken between 7 and 9 a.m. and later in the afternoon between 4 and 6 p.m. in February of 2015 at 6 locations up and down the corridor.
I have a quick question. These counts, were they done when Sunset Elementary was closed for construction, or was Sunset open?
Since it was open.
Okay.
Typically, the PM peak is around 10% of the daily traffic, which is consistent with the city daily counts. On the right is the resulting 2040 peak hour traffic based on the 0.5% growth. What we considered. Many elements were considered in different combinations to come up with the two proposed options, including 3 and 5 lane sections, medians, no medians, bike lanes, sidewalks, signals, roundabouts, to name a few. From all these elements considered, the following options were modeled and evaluated. The typical street reconstruction option, this is maintaining the 5-lane section along Castle, similar to existing. This proposes a traffic signal at the intersection of Harvard. The complete streets option includes a lane reconfiguration from 5 to 3 lanes along Castle from 14th Street to just south of 8th. This proposes a roundabout at the intersection of Castle and Harvard. This option is in accordance with the city's 2012 Complete Streets policy. Streets that are planned, designed, and operated to enable efficient and safe access for all users, pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, and transit riders of all ages and abilities.
Mayor, quick question. Why is the typical street reconstruction on that you have there, why would it not be considered a complete street?
It would have to do with the increase in safety that the complete street option has as far as vehicle speeds. So the complete street option has that additional safety feature where the typical street reconstruction has complete street elements to it.
So you said it has to do with vehicle speed, so does that mean the complete street design is going to have lower speed limits?
No, the speed limits would be approximately the same.
So how would that work then?
Well, a lot of times when you have the 1-lane section, you have the slower motorists, the faster motorists can't speed around the slower ones like they could in the 4-lane section.
So is that the only thing that's distinguishing the two, is just the speed aspect of it? Being complete versus non-complete?
There's different aspects that I'll touch on here shortly. Wider lanes for the complete street option.
Okay.
Bicycle, the buffer lane. A few elements that the complete street has that the typical doesn't.
And that's required in order for it to be a complete street, the buffers and all that?
Well, I mean, as far as what's required, it's what can be accomplished, I guess, as far as the design is. I'm not
Well, I
sure
just
if
know
I'm
our
asking-
policy is that we want to go to complete streets, so if, I just need to know what the difference is between these two designs. Why is one a complete street and why is the other one not a complete street? If it still meets all the elements of the requirements. So maybe you can touch on that as you go through.
Okay.
Okay.
As I move forward, I will get into further of what the differences between the options are.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on that.
Essentially, what you're saying is with the 2 lanes, you have greater speed differentials between the vehicles, and you're reducing that with going to 1 lane in each direction?
Yes, you potentially could have a higher or speed differential in the 4-lane sections.
And so you're overall going to reduce and even out the speeds of the vehicles with the complete streets option?
Right, with the 1 lane, it's,
Yeah.
you don't have the passing ability.
Right.
Pace car.
Go ahead.
The complete street option includes the lane reconfiguration from 5 to 3 lanes and the roundabout at Harvard and Castle. Both options include a median with center turn lanes when necessary, designated bike lanes on both sides, sidewalk on the east side, shared use path on the west. Both options are wide enough to ensure emergency vehicle access, postal access, solid waste recycling, and street cleaning services. Various options were considered at 8th and Castle, including maintaining the stop signs, constructing a roundabout, installing a traffic signal, installing a pedestrian beacon, allowing free-flowing northbound and southbound traffic, and eliminating all left turn movements at the intersection. The roundabout at 8th has been removed from this list of options due to right-of-way constraints and results of public input. This project would also include the replacement of the water distribution system along Castle, and we also evaluated the cost and feasibility of a shared use path extension along Castle north of 6th Street to Peterson Road.
Aaron, real fast, I'm sorry to jump back a slide, but
Where you had your traffic counts and you showed truck traffic, as I look at the city's website where we have designated truck routes, truck delivery routes, there's only 2 truck delivery routes west of Iowa Street that run north and south, Castle and Wakarusa. Would a narrowing of Castle affect its designation as a truck delivery route?
I don't think it would affect the designation of that. The 3-lane sections and the roundabout would accommodate truck and bus traffic through the alignment.
Okay.
This next slide reflects the existing typical section for Castle. It is generally 4 12-foot lanes with a median at variable widths. The extreme east to west back curb to back curb dimension ranges from 68 to 72 feet. The typical street reconstruction option provides a similar street section as compared to existing. 2 lanes in each direction, a median with left turn lanes where necessary, bike lanes, sidewalk, shared use path, and a signal at Harvard. This slide is the typical street reconstruction section. This section provides 11-foot lanes, 5-foot bike lanes, sidewalks, and a narrow median. This section has an extreme east to west exterior back of curb to back of curb dimension of 69 feet, similar to the existing section. The narrow lanes and median provides additional room to add the bike lanes.
Is the bike lanes, are they in the street or are they
They are on the
separated
extreme outside.
of the street
lane.
itself, or where are they at?
These are the 2 lanes, so this here would be the 5-foot bike lane. Then this would be the 5-foot bike lane.
So it's similar to what was done on Wakarusa?
Correct.
Aaron, I have a question. The 11-foot lanes,
We were told when we did the project south of Bob Billings Parkway down to 22nd Street, by going to the 11-foot lanes, it would slow the traffic down. Do we have any information that would tell us that that was in fact true?
I don't have any information at hand that would say yea or nay to that.
Is it your professional opinion that 11-foot lanes slow traffic down? I mean, we were told that by our engineers 10 years ago, or whenever.
Yeah, potentially. It has a visual barrier on each side of the narrow lane.
I know it gets my attention as I'm driving west of this building on 6th Street, as those lanes narrow down quickly. I definitely slow down, so I think that, you know, I would have to say that they do. You know, even without the information, your professional opinion is something that I would value, and if that 11-foot lane does in fact help control speeds, I think that that's something we ought to look at least talk about.
As opposed to the wider lane, I would agree with the narrower lane. The complete streets option. This option provides one lane in each direction from south of 8th Street to 14th. It maintains the 2 lanes in each direction at the commercial ends on the north and south side of the project. This option also includes a median with left turn lanes where needed, buffered bike lanes, sidewalk, shared use path, and a roundabout at Harvard. This slide is the complete streets section. It provides the 12-foot lanes, 5-foot bike lanes with 3 feet of buffer, a median, sidewalk, and shared use path. This section results in an extreme east to west exterior back curb dimension of 56 feet. Evaluating the options. What is the capacity of a traffic lane? Capacity of a single traffic lane is 1,900 vehicles per hour, and a double lane is 3,800 vehicles per hour. The current and peak hour counts, the area of the reconfiguration listed below these capacities at Castle of 651 vehicles per hour and 76. Over to the right is the capacity of a roundabout lane. A single lane, 1,250 to 1,600 vehicles per hour, and a double lane of 24 to 3,000 vehicles per hour. Below that is the peak hour volumes along Castle at Harvard.
Aaron, on the peak numbers for the single lane at 1,900 vehicles per hour, is that per hour, is that correct?
Correct.
That's the most that it could handle before you'd have to go into a double lane?
Correct. Looking at the, right.
So your growth rate that you had projected at 0.5%, when you talked about that a little bit earlier, you said you were confident that that would address the potential growth up to 2040, is that correct? Was that you were?
Well, the potential for a single lane, you're saying?
Yeah, I'm just
That-
trying to get an idea
The
of,
0.5% is just the projection to year 2040.
and that is just based on
That's
historical growth, or?
Based on numerous things, historical growth, 0.5% is a common growth factor used in traffic studies. It's a growth rate that is seen as, I guess, accurate in a mostly fully developed area.
Aaron, did you take into consideration the endowment properties that's on the southeast corner and what potentially that development or that area developed out could have on Castle Drive?
Yeah, we looked at that, and I do have a sheet that I showed some information on. If this could get to it.
When you want to go back, PC.
Okay, thanks.
And this is
Well, always as the question of what can a piece of property be developed into. It is owned by the University of Kansas right now. If they plan to extend their west campus, seems to be the most ideal at that location, which could lead to believe that most of the traffic would potentially go east towards the university along Bob Billings Parkway. But assuming for whatever reason, if it could be developed, worst case, we could look at apartments and what traffic that would create. This is a challenging piece of property. The topography falls 100 feet across that property. It's about a 100-acre lot, but what is already developed on the east side, and there's also a floodplain tributary through there. There's anywhere between 40 to 60 acres of probably developable property. So assuming a 50 acres at 10 units per acre, 500 units would create an additional 3,300 vehicles per day of traffic, 310 vehicles per hour during the PM peak. Not all that traffic would go north, assuming about a quarter of it would go to the north, would add 830 vehicles per day. Now, the study accounts for 1,800 vehicles of increase to 2040. Whether we could assume that that's part of that, or worst case, even if it's not part of that, adding that to that growth rate does not exceed the parameters of single lane or 2,500 vehicles per day. It turns that 1,700 to 18,000, you know.
I thought the single lane capacity was 1,900 a
Yes.
day. So how does that not exceed it if you, 830 a day? If you add that in with what's currently going through there?
Well, that's a vehicles per day, that's a daily traffic volume. The corresponding vehicles per hour would be 78. So a quarter of that would potentially go north, adding 20 vehicles per hour to the 736 number.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Okay.
Could we get a copy of that one picture you had with KU endowment property, just as, what was written on the bottom?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Looking at the chart at the bottom, as shown by numerous studies and similar projects, Dave will go over a few of these case studies here shortly. The parameters for these types of reconfiguration projects target streets with daily traffic ranging from 10,000 to 25,000 vehicles per day. Falling in that range is Castle, who currently has the highest daily traffic volume of just under 15,000 vehicles per day and just under 17,000 in 2040. This slide shows the level of service and daily results for the intersection at Harvard. Level of service in existing conditions range from B to C. Both the roundabout and the signal options increase the level of service to A to B and decrease overall delay times. This slide shows the level of service and delay results for the intersection at 8th Street. Similar to Harvard, the level of service in existing conditions are in the B to C range. All options increase the level of service to A to B and decrease overall delay times, with exception to the 8th Street leg and the option to keep Castle free-flowing. As expected, the 8th Street leg, the level of service decreases and delay times increase. This chart shows the current and 2040 estimated travel times, north and southbound totals. So would be the time potentially that it would take to start at 6th Street, go down the Bob Billings Parkway, then back up to 6th Street. Existing times were around 7 minutes, give or take. Then in the next columns, there are times for the proposed options. The middle 2 columns are the typical street reconstruction option with the signal and stop sign variations at 8. Then in the last column are the times for the complete streets with the signal at 8th Street. What's important to note here is that all improvement options decrease travel times as compared to existing conditions.
Why do you think that is? If a typical street redo is going to how does it lower the times with what we have now?
Well, at a signal, not all traffic is stopped,
Okay.
Along Castle. These are our synchro models that I'm hoping I can get to run for you. This is sort of a close-up between 8th at the top and Harvard at the bottom. This would be the typical street reconstruction. And this is looking at our PM peak 2040 traffic, so pretty much the worst-case scenario. So potentially during that time, with those traffic volumes, this is what that section of Castle would look like. And it is at 8 times the normal speed.
So there's a stoplight at 8th and
Right, this
Harvard.
is a stoplight at both intersections. And I'll point out before I go to the next slide, keep an eye on 8th Street on this. My next secret model has a roundabout, which we initially looked at 8th Street. But I want to just keep an eye on that, considering looking at the traffic signal at 8th Street in the other scenario. And again, these are based on 2040 PM peak traffic volumes.
It looks like at Harvard and
Castle with that, there's not a lot of backup on Harvard. That was one of the things I was wondering, was whether it'd be hard to get on into the roundabout from Harvard.
No, I think there'd be enough
Enough
breaks
gaps
in
to
the
be able to get in
traffic
there, yeah.
to do that.
And these are using traffic volumes for 2040, is that correct?
In the PM, so pretty much the worst case scenario. Well, with that, I will give it back to Dave to go over some case studies.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm going to go over a couple of different type scenarios or projects or streets that have similar traffic flows as we're proposing on Castle. So the first is 9th Street east of Emory. It has an average daily traffic of over 16,700 vehicles per day, which is more than Castle. A couple years ago, we restriped the section from Emory to Mississippi as a 3-lane section. West of Emory, it has been a 2-lane section for a long time, and when we looked at that intersection at Emory and having the 2 lanes each direction and all the left turns, we got some safety money from KDOT to improve that intersection, or the turn lanes at that intersection, to have a center turn lane so that folks that wanted to make a left turn weren't in the 3 lanes. And then with that project, extended that back to Mississippi. So it's not exactly similar to Castle, as this corridor has traffic signals in it, and the area on Castle with the lane reduction does not have a traffic signal, but it does have a significant higher average daily traffic, and is a safer section of 9th Street than it was before.
Before you go on.
Yes.
There were initially some complaints about backups on 9th Street through that area. Have you done anything to deal with that situation?
We have adjusted the signal timing in the peak hour to extend the green time on 9th Street, and coordinated the timing with Mississippi and Emory to keep traffic flowing. So, the queuing of traffic that we would have used to see at Emory going westbound when that was a 4-lane section is now back at Mississippi Street, but during the peak hour, we've adjusted the timing to help facilitate that traffic.
Okay.
In Kansas City, Missouri, just as a general guidance, they are looking at evaluating their arterial streets that are 4-lane sections that have average daily traffic less than 20,000 vehicles per day. And that 20,000 vehicle per day is kind of a baseline number to start looking at, the feasibility of lane reconfigurations, not just in Kansas City, but nationally. So that is an ongoing initiative that they are looking at. In addition, which in my opinion is the most similar section of road that I've seen that this idea has been incorporated with, is on Mission Road in Prairie Village. So between 71st Street and 75th Street, they're reconstructing that this year from 4 lanes to 3 lanes. It has residential on one side of the street with driveways. On the other side of the street, there's a retirement community, a school, and on either end of the project are commercial nodes. That street has similar traffic volumes to Castle, around 15,000 vehicles per day. And Kansas City, Kansas, and Prairie Village are looking at extending that lane reconfiguration on Mission Road. So a couple of other case studies that were provided to us by the Federal Highway Administration as good examples of lane reconfiguration projects. Burton Street in Grand Rapids, Michigan, had an average daily traffic of about 15,000 vehicles per day. And Lawyers Road in Reston, Virginia, 17,000 vehicles per day. And with those projects, they've had a reduction in crashes. And then as time has gone on, they've seen increased use in bicycle use. Travel times have remained steady, and that after those have been completed, they've gone back out and gotten some opinions on it. And like with a project in Virginia, 74% of folks agreed it was an improvement after the project was done. So those are 2 examples that are similar in traffic volumes to Castle and have already been implemented, and there's some data on those.
Dave, I have a question. The proposed street plan for Castle with the 3 lanes, the center turn lane, will people be able to park on the side of Castle?
Not permanent parking, like on-street parking, but you would be able to pull off to the side of the road. And I've got some examples I'm going to go through in situations like mail trucks or solid waste vehicles, but it wouldn't have on-street
For
parking.
guests that might
It
be
would not
visiting.
have on-street parking, and it doesn't today anywhere on Castleton. For an arterial street, we usually wouldn't recommend adding on-street parking.
Dave, did you run across any case studies where it wasn't working?
Not with the traffic volumes that are similar to Castle. There may be some that have higher traffic volumes that may not be working as well, but I don't have any examples of those.
Is that something you typically would look for when you're trying to, put together whether or not there's any that aren't working?
Yeah, if there was, I'm just not aware of it. So
Okay.
we've looked at a lot of different examples, and there weren't any that I can recall. Aaron, did you guys have any?
On the East of Emory project we did here in Lawrence, was there any traffic data regarding the average daily traffic pre and post project? I guess what I'm getting at is, did we see any instances where people opted for another route because of the narrowing?
We have not taken traffic counts after the project.
Okay.
Just crash data last year. So we kind of discussed about this earlier, about speeds on traffic and free flow speeds, and the ability to, if you have 2 lanes and the person in front of you is driving the speed limit, you can go around them at a higher speed. So with having the situation kind of that's out there today with the 2 lanes of traffic each direction, there's really no limiting factor on how fast you want to go. Obviously, we have a posted speed limit. Sometimes it's only as good as how often it's enforced. So last fall, with our discussions with the Pedestrian Coalition, we went out and got this data for 85th percentile speed, and that's kind of the industry standard for looking at average speeds. So Castle, between 13th and 14th, it's currently signed at 35 miles per hour. The 85th percentile speed is 43.
So, David, an 85% speed in this situation at 35 and 43, what you're saying is, as I understand it, that 1 out of every 7 cars is going 43 miles per hour faster through that stretch? Is that what
Yes.
that 85th percentile means?
Or slower. I mean, 85th percentile, it's the range that 85% of the people, the traffic is driving. So it could be faster, it could be slower. People could be going 20 miles per hour, and that would not be counted within the average.
Can you explain that to me again? I'm sorry.
So the top 15 and the bottom 15 are excluded, effectively, right?
Okay.
Or the top 7.5, and then the average, so the outliers are eliminated.
Yeah.
Okay, so the outliers are eliminated.
So if you're
So-
pedaling down that road going 12
Okay.
miles an hour, you're not counted.
Okay,
Is that right?
okay,
Is that the explanation? Okay.
okay. Okay.
Okay.
Castle at 10th Street, 41. Castle at between 8th and 10th, 37. So just, it ranges between, I guess, 7 to 11 miles per hour over the speed limit as it's currently signed. So one of the things, with this discussion as well, we went back and looked at the section of Castle we reconstructed south of Clinton Parkway, from Clinton Parkway to 31st Street. We went back after that project was completed and put in that median cut and that crosswalk that's at 27th Street, and went through the Traffic Safety Commission. When we did that, the 85th percentile speed was 52 miles an hour. And so that's one of the factors or thoughts that we want to consider when looking at this section of Castle is with, obviously brand-new pavement, less potholes, obstructions. It's going to be easier to go at a higher rate of speed if we have similar traffic volume. So when we're looking at complete streets and safety, speed is one of those factors, and that's just some of the data as it exists today, and we took those kind of in between the stop signs on Castle at different locations. Other case studies on lane reconfiguration projects, project in New York where it was near a school, that the percentage of vehicles exceeding the speed limit decreased by 34%, and in one direction and 21% in the other. Another project in Sioux County, Iowa, percent of vehicles traveling more than 5 miles per hour over the speed limit before was reduced from 43% to 13%. So those are just more examples or indications of, when reducing the lanes just reduces the ability for folks that are exceeding the speed limit to comply with the speed limit if someone, is going slower in front of them. This is just information that we wanted to put on the slide of different resources and studies that we've looked at or that could have a lot more information, so I'm not going to go through all of those, but it would just say that this is something that's being looked at on a national basis, and that there's a lot of data out there that would support this type of project. So one of the initiatives that Federal Highway Administration is undergoing right now is looking at these road reconfiguration projects. They looked at the traffic study for Castle. They looked at the configuration of the lanes. They also have a consultant that reviews all of these type of projects, and they looked at all the data and felt that in their opinion, this option was feasible. They thought it was, I think, in the letter that we attached to the agendas in the sweet spot for what they feel would be a project that should be looked at for the road reconfiguration, and that it would accommodate traffic in the future. So with that, they provided us animated drawings or examples to help show the different benefits of the road reconfiguration. So here is our existing condition, and that's just an example of how if someone's driving the speed limit, you can accelerate and go around them faster. Here's the traditional options, similar with that includes the bike lane, and here's the complete streets that shows a reduction in speed if you have no ability to go around someone quicker. So that's a little on the speeding question. Here's an example of stopped vehicles. Today, if someone stops to drop off the mail or pick up solid waste, they block the through lane or a stalled vehicle. With the traditional design, they could get over into half the bike lane, but they would still be in part of the through lane. And with the complete streets option, they are able to move completely out of the through lane and not impede traffic at all. So in this complete streets option, the bike lane is wide enough to accommodate stalled vehicles, UPS trucks, solid waste trucks. If emergency services were going through, you'd be able to pull over to the side of the road and still allow them to get by you. So it's not substantially less wide than it is out there today. The street width with the complete streets option is 24 foot back of curb to back of curb. Right now, I believe it's 28 foot back of curb to back of curb.
As there's no barrier to impede a car from making that move, is there any concern that having a bike lane as wide as a car is just going to create a scenario where individuals drive in the bike lane?
It could cause that scenario. We would, we would not recommend putting a permanent barrier up in between because it would be, there's just the maintenance with that. I mean, that would be a preferred option to have a buffered bike lane that has a physical barrier, but with snow operations and just the maintenance aspect, we're not recommending that. But certainly, it is paint. People would still be able to go around someone in the bike lane. So we can't prevent that without a physical barrier. So we could look at something like bollards to put in there. But again, that would be something that would be annual maintenance cost. And again, we have mailboxes and trash, solid waste pickup that too would be an obstacle, so.
So how would this impact neighbors getting out of their driveway along that stretch of Castle?
Well, I think that it would be easier to get in and out of your driveway to turn in or out, to have the complete streets project where you have a lane that you don't have traffic behind you. You could pull over, turn into your driveway or back
So
out and have
it's
some.
okay for them to drive in the bike lane?
It would be if there's not a bicyclist. I mean, I think it would naturally be used as an area to pull over to get out of through traffic. It wouldn't be a turn lane. It shouldn't be used as a turn lane, as a right turn lane, but you would have the ability to get out. And if you were backing out of your driveway, you would have more room to back out without being in a through lane, as long as a bicyclist wasn't using the lane. So,
So they would have to use that bicycle lane to get in and out of their driveway if the traffic flow is such.
yeah, it gives them more street pavement to get in and out of their driveway without being in a vehicular lane.
Okay.
Here's a couple of examples with having a bicyclist in the through lane like it exists today. Here's the more traditional option. They're in the 5-foot bike lane. And with the complete streets option, we have a 12-foot buffered bike lane. They have a little more room that if folks are drifting over into the lane, they won't impede the bicyclist. Pedestrian crossings with the existing condition, crossing 2 lanes of traffic in both directions. It's more pavement to cross. The traditional option is pretty similar, crossing 2 lanes. You do have the additional width with the bike lanes. Then the complete streets crossing, you're crossing 2 12-foot lanes of traffic instead of 4 lanes of traffic.
Plus the bike routes.
Plus the bike lanes.
So
Plus the bike lanes. At the intersection with Castle and Harvard, the bike lanes will end before the crosswalk, and you'd be crossing 2 12-foot lanes versus 5 lanes and 2 bike lanes. So that would be 65 foot of pavement at the intersection with a traffic signal, and then 24 foot of pavement with the complete streets option.
So where do the bikes go at that point?
What's that?
Where do the bikes go at that point?
The bikes are encouraged to either merge into to use the full lane as a vehicle as they are operating the roundabout, or they have the option to get off and use the sidewalk. So it'll be similar. I think I have a picture coming up that will show an example of how we treat that.
Okay.
Again, just some benefits of the lane reconfiguration project. We've talked a lot about these, but really the big one is safety for all users, motorists, pedestrians, bicyclists. And also we want to be able to accommodate traffic. I mean, traffic is still the predominant transportation user, and so we obviously need to consider that. Safety benefits with roundabouts, and we've talked about this before, but I'll go over this kind of quickly. With the roundabout, intersection, there's fewer conflict points. You have 8 vehicle conflict points, 8 pedestrian conflict points. With a more traditional intersection with left turns, you have 32 vehicle conflicts and 24 pedestrian conflicts. And as pedestrian injury severity goes, it's really indicated based off of the impact speed. And so with intersections, traffic is going faster through the intersection than they are at roundabouts, which have lower design speeds. And so you can see with this graph, the blue is fatality, yellow is injury, and the pink is uninjured. As you reduce the speed of the crash with a pedestrian, your likelihood of injury or a fatality decreases. So again, some more safety benefits of roundabouts. They reduce the high speed, right angle accidents that are caused by folks turning out in front of traffic. They have lower speeds at the intersection, and overall, we see a decrease in crashes and injury crashes and fatalities nationwide through researching roundabouts. One of the things that we looked at here in the last year was going back and looking at pedestrian and bicycle crashes at roundabouts and traffic signals. If you add all these up, going back to 2013, we've had 72 pedestrian and bicycle crashes at intersections with traffic signals. We've had 1 pedestrian crash at a roundabout, and that was at Monterey Way in Peterson. And obviously we have a lot more signal controlled intersections, 92 versus the 20 roundabouts in Lawrence. But I think looking at the data, that 72 versus the 1 we've had is a significant number that should be taken into consideration.
Do you have the crash data just for Castle?
We do. And I can give you the number. I think we may have the numbers in here, but over the last 5 years, we've had 22 crashes at Castle and Harvard, 2 injury crashes. And so when we applied for federal safety money to KDOT for looking at the roundabout option, they used that crash data, the injury crashes, the property damage only crashes, put it into a formula, and if it meets their formula with spending the upfront cost of the roundabout, it reduces the crashes enough that the benefit cost safety ratio pencils out over 20 years. So KDOT felt that there was enough crashes at the intersection that changing the 4-way stop to a roundabout would reduce it enough to offset the $400,000 that they would award for the project.
So that money would only be for a roundabout, though?
Correct.
Could you make it a 4-lane roundabout and have 4 lanes of traffic?
We could. The challenges with putting in a 4-lane roundabout, which is, we're going to talk about a little here with Wakarusa later, but the number one concern would be right-of-way. We would need to acquire likely one, if not both, of the houses on the corners to be able to put in the right size roundabout that would be needed for 2 lanes each direction on Castle. And again, the single lane roundabout will handle the traffic capacity well into the future based off of the volume. So a 2-lane roundabout would work, but I mean, there's just, in my opinion, just not enough traffic out there to warrant the need even in the future for a 2-lane roundabout.
And any savings we got from KDOT would be used to purchase the property.
It very likely could be, offset that.
So I know we're going to talk about the Wakarusa roundabout here a little bit later, but how is this different? Because it's going to be a 4-lane, right? The one at Wakarusa and
Yeah.
And the traffic counts are similar, so why?
They are similar today. What we would expect to see on Wakarusa is traffic counts to continue to increase. There's a lot of, it's more of a commercial area. There's a lot of property out there that's still undeveloped. Here at Castle, it's, predominantly developed, and it's been that way for 20 years, and we haven't seen traffic increase on Castle. We have seen it increase over time a little more on Wakarusa. The development has continued to occur out west, and there's still a lot of developable ground out there, and a lot of it's commercial, which has a higher traffic use.
Do you have any data that shows that continued growth on Wakarusa is not going to feed over into Castle? There's not going to be pressure on Wakarusa 6th or Bob Billings that's not going to put more pressure on Castle? Do you have any information as to how that, you don't think that's going to bleed over?
From Wakarusa to Castle?
Yeah, from Wakarusa, because you said it's continuing to grow, which I agree. And then 6th Street, I'm just looking at our traffic count map. 6th Street, we're showing like 20,000 up by the K-10 crossing. So how is that not going to continue to impact flow or traffic count numbers on Castle, considering those are the two main through streets in West Lawrence, north and south?
Well, like I said, but most of Castle is already developed, and so, I think north-south traffic would continue to use Wakarusa as it develops further. I don't have any data that would show traffic spilling over onto Castle. I think we still think it will increase a little bit. That's why we have the 0.5% increase or traffic growth on Castle. But, and that's going back over the last 20 years, we've seen 0.4. So we've had Wakarusa still continue to grow on traffic, Castle has still been pretty steady over that time. So we would expect that to continue into the future.
So is that why we're not doing a complete street type design like you're saying here on Wakarusa? We've been recently redoing quite a few of that area down there.
Yeah, that's why we're not recommending to do the lane reduction on Wakarusa, is because of the potential for increase in traffic volumes into the future.
Do you have traffic counts on George Williams Way?
We do. I don't have them with me,
But you're keeping track of that too?
in KDOT, the traffic volumes we got on Castle were from KDOT. They get traffic counts at the same location every 3 years. We also do our own traffic counts, but we've used the KDOT traffic counts to be consistent, that they've looked at traffic in these locations every 3 years, and so we've used that as kind of the consistent data for the Castle project.
So was it 2012 when we came up with the policy for the complete streets? Was that?
I believe that's when it was adopted.
When it was adopted?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this goes back to that question about using a roundabout as a bicyclist. As the bike lane approaches the roundabout, the bike lane ends, and as a bicyclist is able to most often use the roundabout at the same speed as a vehicle, they can merge into the through lane and take the full lane, or they have the ability to get off on a ramp that leads up to the sidewalk, to use the sidewalk across the crosswalk and then get back on the street on the other side of the roundabout. So there's two different options for bicyclists, depending on the comfort level of the bicyclist using the roundabout. This is kind of a standard design that we've installed at roundabouts here recently. This one's at 25th and O'Connell. We did the same thing out on Wakarusa and Inverness with that project last year. Again, this is a comparison of the option. We've talked a lot about the speeding and the collisions and the bike lanes. With the typical street, we have the 5-foot bike lane. With the complete streets, it's an 8-foot buffered bike lane. Again, with the pedestrian crossing that would be at the roundabout, With the typical street reconstruction, you're crossing a lot more pavement. With the complete street roundabout option, it's shorter distance to cross the street. You would cross one lane, have a median, cross the other lane of traffic.
Where does that data come from? Go back to that last one. Where does the data from that's indicating there's a reduction of 40% and 76% and 90%? Where does that data come from?
Those are national numbers, and I don't have the source, but it's Institute of Traffic Engineers, ITE study.
Has that been our experience with the roundabouts we have now that have recently we've built in the past several years? That there's been a reduction? Because I think I saw a chart.
Yeah, that crash
Yeah,
chart showed that
okay.
there was only 72 in the signals and the 1 in the roundabout.
But was that for pedestrians though? Was that chart for pedestrians, I thought?
Yeah.
Not for collisions, this is for collisions. So
So your question is the pedestrian?
yeah, I think I was just thinking the chart we saw earlier was for pedestrian conflicts or crashes, whatever you want to call it. This right here, is that for vehicle crashes?
Yes.
Okay. So it is, do we have data that shows from our other roundabouts that this has been true? That we've seen this kind of reduction in the vehicle in roundabouts?
We have been getting data from Wakarusa and Inverness, which was one of the ones that, since it's similar to the one at Wakarusa and Harvard, we felt it was important to look at it, and that has been, it's fluctuated. It's been 1.5 years since it's been completed. There was 1 crash last year, and there's been 5 this year. 3 of them are just single vehicle crashes that snow and ice, they slipped off the road, hit the curb. Before, there was 8 in 3 years. So I don't know if we have enough data to formulate a good conclusion yet on reducing. There wasn't a whole lot there before, and there hasn't been a whole lot since. And typical with a lot of the roundabouts, we put in, a lot of them are in new areas. As the city grows, we put them in, so there's not a whole lot of before data on crashes, or put them in. We haven't done a whole lot of, I guess, retrofit type projects like we did on Wakarusa.
How about
2 years
19th
ago.
and Barker?
19th and Barker, I'm not sure if we have, we may have collected data after that was put in. It's been put in for a while, and I don't know if we continue to track it, but we could certainly go back and look at before and after crash data there.
Because it seems like we've got a few roundabouts that we would be able to gather some data that would show whether these percentages hold true in Lawrence. It'd be nice to see. Thank you.
And 9th Street as well,
Where we
between
have,
Main and Emory. Any crash rates that we can compare before the road diet and after would be really helpful.
Not just crashes, but I'd like to see traffic count.
Yeah.
Like I said, at the point at which you narrow a road, you can say 20 years down the road, see it had no impact, traffic moves just fine, but that's only true if you account for the same number of cars. If people are finding an alternative route because of the narrowing of the road, you've made the situation better there and made everything else worse. Does that make sense?
Again, this is just a comparison of the options with the travel times, with the typical street reconstruction versus the complete street. The travel time from 6th Street to Bob Billings is going to be about similar. They're both quicker than they are today, with not having to have 2 4-way stops to go through, or I guess 1 4-way and 1 3-way stop. So both options are very similar in the travel time to get from south to north or north to south on average. Both of them, both intersection control, traffic signal, roundabout, level service A or B, very similar. They both can handle traffic volumes in peak hour.
David, I'm seeing on the second line there where it says capacity of single lane 1,900 vehicles per hour. Is that per hour?
Correct.
And then for typical, it's 3,600 vehicles per hour?
That's correct. And that's the free flow speed. The highway capacity manual is free flow speed for a single lane of traffic.
So what's the 736 vehicles per hour? That's the, so it's only projected to be that much per
Yeah, I
hour?
believe that's the number in 2040 for the vehicles per hour in the peak hour. Yeah, in the PMP. So
That's peak, okay.
So it looks like from that, there'd be over 1,100 capacity between the 736 and the 1,900 with a complete streets option.
correct.
Okay.
We haven't done design plans yet, but additional right-of-way and easements would more likely be needed with the typical street reconstruction because we're in a wider footprint. We're adding sidewalk on the east side of the street that currently doesn't exist through a stretch. We're redoing the water line. There's utilities through there. So there could be some additional right-of-way or easements that would be required with the wider street project than with the Complete Streets project. When we started this, looking at this project back in 2015, we were asked to look at the possibility to extend sidewalks and bicycle facilities north of 6th Street if it would be within the budget. And I think if we had the cost savings for the Complete Streets options, that's certainly a possibility. We estimated at $250,000 preliminarily to get a sidewalk and bike facility from 6th Street up to Peterson Road. And looking at a comparison of the cost, which is obviously another factor, when we take into consideration the construction costs, water line costs, design costs, we're looking at about $6.5 million for the typical street reconstruction option, which is the 5 lanes. With the Complete Streets option, that includes the roundabout and the money from KDOT through federal highways. We have that $400,000, which they've actually increased to $475,000, so it'd be $75,000 less than what's shown there. But we have that at about $5.4 million. So with those numbers, we're looking at a little over $1 million different in upfront construction cost. You have the less pavement and less storm sewer with the Complete Streets option, and obviously with the federal money that reduces the city's cost of the project overall.
Do you know what the cost was specifically for that traffic signal at 8th and Castle? Or just kind of ballpark?
I don't, I think it would be in the range of $200,000 to $250,000.
Okay.
So with the recommendation, we are recommending the Complete Streets option. We feel that it increases safety, it still accommodates traffic today and into the future. We looked at, the residential area where we're reducing the lanes would just be from 9th Street to 14th Street through the residential area. Once we get north and south of those areas and the commercial areas, would still be 5 lanes, kind of similar to the way it is today. And with the additional savings of the construction cost and all these other factors, I think it is certainly a viable option. In my professional opinion, it would be an option that I wouldn't hesitate to recommend. I do understand all of the public comment and input we've got through this project. A lot of folks have a lot of questions on the changing something that is perceived to exist fine today, and it operates okay today. So it is something that the challenge with this would be getting over that and doing something that's a little bit of a change. I would say that either option is a viable option. They're both better options than what we have out there today. They increase safety at intersections. They increase traffic flow. They have pedestrian facilities, bike facilities. on both projects. So I think in those views, they're kind of equal. So that's, we can look at additional design options with either one of these. We're just tonight looking to get some idea on what the preferred option for the community is, so that we could come back with a design fee for us to get started again on producing some design plans. We're expecting to do this project, construction start next summer. Obviously, we need to go through design plans, look at utilities, right-of-way, easements, how we're going to phase the project. We're going to try to accommodate traffic throughout the project, at least one lane in each direction, through, depending on with either option. And so timing-wise, we still have a lot of things to work out on as far as schedule goes. It would be a lot of work to get done in one construction season. If we got started early in the spring next year, it could be feasible, but we would need to really get started on the design plans to be able to do that. So I know there's probably a lot of questions and comments to come, so with that, if there's not any additional questions, I'll stand for any comments or questions.
Questions? Yeah, please, go ahead.
The stretch of Castle from Bob Billings up to 23rd has got the multi-use path. Is there a reason why that entire design couldn't be just used on this other stretch?
And it can, and both of these designs include an 8-foot shared use path. So there will still be a wide sidewalk bike facility off the street with both of these options. I don't know if we've fully determined east side of the street or west side of the street yet. The rest of the shared use path south of Bob Billings is on the west side, so we may look at that first. But yeah, so there will still be a wide 8-foot path on the west side.
And that will be
east side of-
multi-use or sidewalk?
What we would call a shared use path, which the minimum width is 8 foot, maximum is 10, or the typical is 10. But with the constrained right-of-way, I don't know if we would have enough room to do 10 foot and have 5 lanes and then have another 6-foot sidewalk on the other side. So it's possible in areas to have a 10-foot wide, but some areas we may need to reduce it down to 8 foot. But
So in the complete street design, what's the width of the path that's not in the street?
it's 8 foot.
8 foot. So is reason they couldn't just use that for the bikes and not have bike lanes in the street?
Well, one of the things with the complete streets option is that we still need to maintain a minimum roadway width of 20 feet for emergency vehicles. And so if you have the one lane that's 12 foot, you already have an 8 foot space left over for bicyclists. So we wouldn't recommend just doing one 12-foot lane, median one 12-foot lane, and not have the on-street bike lanes, because we need to have that width anyway. So that gives us the ability to have the buffered bike lane. So if you're a cyclist that prefers to use the street or feels comfortable, you can use the street and the bike lane. Or if you prefer to use the shared use path, sidewalk, you can use that instead, which would be similar to Bob Billings Castle south of Bob Billings that we have all the way down to 31st.
How wide is the median in the complete street design?
I believe it's 8 feet.
8 feet?
Yeah.
Does the city maintain the median now?
Yes.
And if there was a shared use path, would the city have to plow it when it snows?
Yes. We take maintenance responsibilities for the shared use paths, all the shared use paths. So maintenance as far as upkeep, the concrete, and then snow and ice as well.
And Parks and Rec would do that?
Parks and Rec gets that chore. But yes, they've been doing that for all the other shared use paths.
Do we know how much that's going to cost extra per year for that?
I don't. It's just another mile of running their smaller plow up and down the sidewalk. So, I mean, they're already doing everything to the south. It's going up another mile from what they do now. So I don't know if it's a significant cost. It probably just depends on how many events we have, snow events.
Other questions of David?
I have another question. On here, it says the shared use path on Castle, 6th Street to Pearson Road, around $250,000. And I was a little confused. Is that going to be also part of the typical street reconstruction? It's in your comparison of costs slide. Down at the bottom of the next, there you go.
Yeah.
Not the next one. There you go. Down at the bottom,
Yeah.
shared use path on Castle. So do both of those options have that sidewalk north of 6th Street or just the complete streets?
Just the complete streets. We could always expand the typical street project. It just doesn't fit within the budget of the typical streets project.
I
which-
see.
Which we have.
That's why you left it out.
Yeah, and so we have, with the cost savings, we would have that ability to do a shared use path on Castle, north of 6, or any other number of things.
David, you said a minute ago that you would like to have direction tonight as to, which project that we would favor, either the typical street or the complete street project. I was under the impression under our work sessions that we weren't going to be given, we weren't going to be making decisions, going to be able to talk about, projects and such. I mean, I can make the decision tonight, I don't have a problem
Your
with that.
impression is correct. This was for discussion purposes.
Okay.
I think what we'd like you to do is give us general direction as to bringing this back onto a regular agenda.
Okay.
And maybe we'll be able to discern amongst the commissioners what direction you're flowing, but we can give you the option when we come back. You know what the staff's recommendation's going to be. That brings to mind, the whole purpose of this is to kind of have this kind of free-flowing discussion, then return it to the city commission table, have the discussion, open it up to the public, and then come back and maybe give us the direction as to how you'd like to proceed after
Okay.
that.
This
And
one-
I'd take each item separately in terms
Very
of
good.
public comment.
Okay. Okay, any other questions of David at this point? So you say public comment on the Castle item now?
I'd return it to the table, have a discussion amongst
Okay.
yourselves. Once that's complete, then open it up for the public comment on this item on the agenda.
Thank you.
Then return it to yourselves to further discuss and give us direction
Got it. Okay.
in terms of bringing it back, not actually making the decision.
Right.
Really quickly, Mike, Dave, I'd asked Aaron earlier, but I just kind of seek your input as well on this. Again, there's only 2 truck delivery routes designated in the city of Lawrence, west of Iowa, Castle being one of those. Do you see a narrowing of the road impacting that?
No, it will still accommodate trucks, it can still be a truck route, the roundabout will be designed to accommodate trucks.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else, David?
I got one more. When you just look at all of Castle, as it goes north and south across Lawrence, so you've got 4 lanes and all of a sudden it comes into 2 lanes, it's like a bottleneck. How do you perceive that as keeping the flow of traffic going as you go, as you narrow it down like that in the middle of basically Lawrence?
Well, again, I think it's based off the traffic volumes, and once you get north of Bob Billings, the traffic is a little less. You get north of the actual signalized intersection, and you don't need to have the 2 lanes to accommodate the volume of traffic. And really, if you even go north of 6th Street, where the traffic volumes continue to decrease and we have 4 lanes, that could be reduced as well. We've already reduced the northbound lanes at the intersection to 1 through lane at 6th and Bob Billings. It's one of the lanes is a dedicated right, and we only have 1 through lane that
At
goes,
6th and Bob Billings?
at 6th and Castle.
Okay.
Northbound. So even north of 6th Street on Castle, where we have 4 lanes to Peterson, we have even less traffic on that segment than we do on this segment. And then if you look even further, as we reconstructed Castle north of Peterson, we did that project similar to this. That's probably the most similar design option that you would see. You have the 20-foot wide pavement, but still the one lane, and you have two roundabouts north of Peterson. And
That's a 30-mile-an-hour section.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
When they redid Sixth, I can't remember how many years ago that was, Mike, but when... It's
been a while.
It's been a while. Were the traffic counts taken into consideration southbound on Castle? Because when they redid it, it became 2 left-hand turn lanes, correct?
Yeah, the determination was made at that time that the dual left turns off of 6th Street heading south, yeah. And it had all to do with traffic count.
And that's why I asked the question, if 10 years ago or whenever that was, the traffic counts necessitated 2 left-hand turns, presumably traffic hasn't decreased in a decade. Why now, would that not be true today?
The traffic backup of the single turn lane on 6th Street, I mean, was horrendous at any time, especially at peak hours. But, the dual left-hand turn going south, was necessary just to, get rid of some of that stacking that was there and allow it to go south, so that was what it was.
There's a Walgreens and a
Ace Hardware?
Strip
Right,
mall.
yeah.
right.
Yeah. The steepness of the entrance to Westlake is,
Yeah.
that's a pretty hairy entrance, especially if you're turning left.
And I think the dual left turn lanes are still needed today. I think it was a good idea to put them in. I drive that every day in the peak hour, a lot of left turns. A lot of them use Walmart or go to Walgreens or the shopping plaza. You see a lot of people peeling off of Castle at those 2 access points.
Okay.
But the 5-lane section still will go through 8th Street, so you still have 2 more blocks on Castle before you merge into the single lane with the complete streets option. I mean, it goes through that stop sign at 8th, so you have...
Yeah, and that's the part I'm having a hard time picturing, is this heavy trafficked left-hand turn that necessitated 2 lanes, and then it shrinking to 1 and 2, and that 2 blocks happens pretty quickly because you've got Walgreens and Westlake are basically the equivalent of 7th, right? And so you'll have, be a tricky maneuver.
David, I've probably voted on every inch of Castle as we've redone it over time. And when I look at this thing, and we're tying into Farmers Turnpike on the north, I think it goes that far, doesn't it?
Yep.
And as it heads south, I voted for a lot of improvements along there. You go south of Bob Billings, I voted for that. You go across Clinton Parkway, voted for those improvements that are going around the curve there at Castle on the curve. Anything that probably has to do with that roadway, I probably voted for. Now we take it around and it almost acts like an inner-city traffic way because it ties Farmers Turnpike to K-10 in a lot of ways because of O'Connell Road. And we got this section, and we never had discussions any at all about, shrinking the roadway down at any other time until now. And tell me why today I should consider voting for the road diet. When I can tell you that I look at south of Bob Billings, and that 4-lane that we put in, it works.
It does, and I think with this project, it's predicated on the intersection with Harvard and the 4-way stop. And so both options work better than the 4-way stop. They're about equal as far as travel time. And because you're continually to move through that intersection. The 2 miles that we've reconstructed to the south with the 4 lanes are great as well. I mean, they handle the traffic, the speeds are higher, but there's nothing wrong with that design either. And at the intersections with signals, we need to have the 2 lanes in each direction, the 4-lane street. So if we were to put in a traffic signal at Castle and Harvard, we would not recommend to have the 1 lane because it's the capacity of queuing traffic at a red light with the signal. So, it's with the traffic volumes to the south, going down south of Clinton Parkway, they're not a whole lot different than these traffic volumes. You have a lot of room, a lot of free flow speed. There's nothing wrong with that. The speeds are a little higher, but it certainly accommodates traffic. And so this is similar to, and either option can do that. And there's just a different cost and probably a little bit different safety factor, I guess, with reducing the lanes through this segment. So again, it's just depends on what values, what different factors you take into the street. I mean, we could do, I would have no hesitation if doing the typical street 5-lane through here, similar to what we've done to the south. It would be similar and accommodate traffic.
And David, and I appreciate you saying that, because you and I have been on different sides on some of the recommendations in the past, and the fact that whatever this commission ultimately decides, through the public process, you can accommodate, whichever one that we would recommend.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, and make it work.
Yep.
Okay.
David, do you see this as a trend going forward, that when we do a major redo on a street, that we're going to recommend going to the 3-lane, especially on a 4-lane street, obviously? We're going to start recommending doing them as a 3-lane, a complete street?
I would
Do you see that?
Yeah, I would just say it depends on the traffic volumes. Every street, every situation is different. So I think we would try to evaluate each reconstruction project on its own, on its own merits or location and opportunity. If we had similar traffic volumes, and there's other streets in town that are 4-lane streets that have lower traffic volumes that may not need those lanes. But again, it just depends on the circumstance and the traffic volumes, and every situation is different. We just extended 31st Street east of Haskell as 2 lanes each direction, 1 lane each direction, a 2-lane street.
I saw that.
I think we feel that's going to accommodate traffic there for long into the future. So it really just depends on the location and different scenarios. So it certainly could be an option in the future, but it just depends on the location.
Thank you.
Anything else? David, thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, at this point. Yeah. Break. You want a little break? Okay. Take 5 minutes of break, okay?
Thank you. I was thinking,
nailed it.
How wonderful. You give Kathy my best, okay? Okay. All right.
My blankies. I'm freezing my butt off.
Okay, we'll go ahead and begin again. Back to the commission, I'd like to have a little bit of everybody's thoughts on, as to where we are kind of right now, and kind of where we are, what your feelings about each one of the projects.
Yeah. Well, to me, the road diet, I don't think won't work without there being roundabouts at Harvard and 8th Street. So since, having one at Harvard, it doesn't really seem to be feasible. I'm not in favor of the road diet.
Okay.
For me, the things that drive my thinking on this are, first, we've got to be able to get traffic through. I mean, that's why we have a street. Second thing is safety. I mean, we want to have a safe street. That's one of our, public safety and non-motorized rights transportation are a couple of our commission goals. And I think there's a huge difference in the safety between the typical and the road diet. The fact is, with a typical street, you're still going to have the high-end speeders going through that section of road, okay? The road diet provides more uniform and steady traffic through that section of road. I don't think we can do a two-lane roundabout at Harvard, and so I tend to favor the road diet solution. The other thing is cost. I mean, it's going to be real hard for me to say we can spend $1 million more on this section of road than we need to get the traffic through, when I just said we don't have the money to spend it on East 9th Street.
Okay.
That did remind me of one thing that I wanted to add. I kind of got the idea from Dave that perhaps this might take 2 years, so funding-wise, would it be spread out over 2 years as well?
Well, the funding for the project is coming from infrastructure sales tax, so it could be spread out over 2 years if the construction takes 2 years. There's sufficient funds that's built up to construct the full typical street option with the budget. So does that answer your question?
I guess one other thing I'd say is that the safety aspects of this are made more significant by the fact that there was a pedestrian fatality in this stretch of road. There's one that we know of. I don't know all the facts about that pedestrian fatality, but safety on our streets is not, it's not a concept that's hard to understand. There are people who are walking and there are people who are riding bikes in this stretch of road, and we need to be concerned about their safety as we're also concerned about the safety of the people in the cars.
Okay. Matt?
Sure. This has been an issue I've followed for a very long time. I am a Castle Drive resident, and so when you talk about this being a neighborhood street, I mean, it is literally my neighborhood street. And one of the first things I did when I got on the commission and this issue started to be discussed is my wife and I went on a walk, and we took 200 surveys with us. And the first 200 doors we found, from our door to 15th, we stuck them in their door, and we put our home address on there and said, hey, just give us some feedback. And we actually managed to get exactly 100 of them back. We had a 50% return rate, which I thought was pretty decent. And of 100 returned, it was 94 to 6. And so, you know, one of the things I truly believe in is in that concept of representative democracy is that it's our job to represent the people who put us here. And with a 94% vote saying that they want that street kept as a 4-lane road, you know, that's going to be where I tend to lend my vote.
I'm looking at several different aspects of this. I'm struggling with the complete street design as a whole at this location. I believe in complete streets. I think that's the future. However, I'm just not quite convinced about it. This is the proper place for it. It doesn't mean I don't think it could happen, but I would like to see more data from Lawrence about roundabouts or crash information. I'd like to see more hard data like that. And the projections, they have a 0.5% growth rate. I'm not real. I don't know if that's really good data. I mean, it's just a projection. I'd like to see where that is appropriate, you know, where they came up with that and how it's appropriate to use it for us, given the massive amount of growth that I see in West Lawrence. Because I'm having a hard time believing there's still not going to be more bleed over from the K-10. I'm having a hard time with that. I just want to see more data, and the crash rates, the 76%, the 40%. I know that's national numbers that you've come up with, which, you know, it's a good start to use, but I think we can come up with better data that's actually applicable in Lawrence, where we can see, you know, what that data is from Lawrence.
I would have to say that, and I appreciate everybody's comments, that the roadway south of Bob Billings has worked pretty well. And you know, if we can accommodate the bicycle traffic, you know, and you know, as David was talking about earlier, the traditional design could work, you know, as we go north of Bob Billings. You know, Lisa, you bring up a point about, you know, the 0.5% increase to 2040. As one of the co-chairs of Horizon 2020, and we had a meeting of 2.5 hours yesterday, and we talked about projections of, you know, population in the future and things. I really have a little bit of concern about, you know, when I look at the number of people that we may be talking about, and really what that equates to on one of 2 or 3 north-south streets that we have with Iowa, Cassold, and Wakarusa Drive. And I think that we need to remember a lot of that new development is probably going to happen to the areas west of Iowa Street. Even though that we are in this area here 100% or heading to 100% develop in this area, it's still going to have an impact because of the development that's going to happen to the west. I think another thing that we haven't given time to really look at here is the effect of the opening of the interchange at Bob Billings and K-10 Highway, and what effect that's going to have on that entire network of streets in that area. People are going to go somewhere. Are they going to get off on 6th Street and come into town, or are they going to get off on Bob Billings and scatter from there as they do? And I think that interchange is new enough. We don't have the data there to be able to make any kind of a decision on that. I think if, you know, my personal feeling is that, and most of it has to do with the fact that I have been involved with the expansion of this roadway all the way around. I think the traditional 4-lane probably works for me as I look at the development of a roadway that's going to be there for considerable years. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Let me ask a question, Mike.
Please.
The roads south from Bob Billings between Iowa and the traffic way are what? Wakarusa, Cassold?
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I'm asking the question about the road south between Iowa and the traffic way, it's what?
You got three of them. You got, west, you got Iowa
West of
Street.
Iowa. West of Iowa.
West of
Castle and
Iowa.
Wakarusa.
You got, yeah, Castle and Wakarusa.
That's it.
Okay, and north you have George Williams Way, Wakarusa, Castle.
Right.
So there's 3 north and there's 2 south. Okay, so I think that will, I mean, I can see why we'd need the bigger road south at Wakarusa, because there's only, it's one of 2 as opposed to one of 3.
Okay. And the question is,
How does that, how do you think that's going to, with your experience with Horizon 2020, do you see any impact there?
I think, well, here again, I think one of the things that I've tried to look at is Bob Billings being the spine of all of this, this roadway, improvement, and with the connection of, say, Iowa Street or the University of Kansas and K-10 Highway, that K-10 Bob Billings interchange right there is going to have, I think, a tremendous impact on that entire road network to the west. And
It's
the
a stretch
development
up
that's
to
about
KU.
to happen, and we got to remember one thing, we are now considering a development to the west of K-10 Highway, and
At Bob
and as the start of where this traffic's going to be. And I think that we need to be very, very careful as to, affecting our roadway systems. That's-
I think when you look at actual mileage, and, Scott, you might be able to correct me if I say something wrong here, but when you look at actual road mileage, am I correct that Cassold has more miles consecutively running north and south than any street in the city of Lawrence? Because as I'm thinking about it, Iowa stops at 6th, obviously you can't continue, whereas Cassold continues north beyond 6th. Tennessee begins at
Farmers
6th.
Turnpike.
Wakarusa becomes nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, and so, we're not just talking about a road to experiment here with. This is the single longest consecutive stretch road we have, north to south, in Lawrence, Kansas.
And the other part of the deal, Stuart, as I look at Castle Drive as a whole, it is truly, as I said a little bit ago, it's an inner city traffic way, if you will. I mean, it is, an inner city roadway because it connects so many miles, as Matt just said. If you consider the connection going all the way around to K-10. So. It's designed to move traffic. So, anyway.
The one item that does appeal to me, and Stuart brought it out, is the cost differential. When you're talking about a $1.16 million cost difference, that's pretty significant, very significant.
Cost always is.
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
Yeah.
And it's something that, to think about. The idea of being able to get this street done, David, I hope that we wouldn't do this over a 2-year period, that it would be one construction season road, as the area, south of Bob Billings, where, we had suggested and the contractor accommodating leaving one lane north and south and make sure traffic could move. And did it in one season. I mean, there were, additions to that contract if it was completed early. But I know it can happen. And, there's a lot of people who make that work.
Let me ask a couple more questions.
Sure.
Do you guys, do you think the 1,900 vehicle capacity that David mentioned is a realistic capacity?
It's 32 cars a minute.
David, you want to talk about that a little bit? I'd like to hear a little bit more about that 1,900.
Well, the 1,900 vehicle per hour that's a lane capacity number that's for a free-flowing traffic lane. So as far as, if your question is it feasible? I mean, it is feasible to handle that much traffic, and then exceeding that, if you were projecting traffic to exceed that in the future, you'd want to design for that, so.
Okay.
But that's free flow speed. So again, the key is the intersection with a roundabout, and that is a little less than 1900. I think the
Okay.
range was 1250 to 1600, because you have the intersection, you have the traffic on the side street. So that's a better number to look at, and when we're looking at 736 vehicles per hour in the peak hour, still well under the bottom range for a single lane
Yeah.
roundabout.
So if the capacity is 1250 and your projection for the peak volume is 736, there's a pretty good differential there. And I just wondering, do you have a number for what you all are expecting? I mean, we have these kind of concerns about volume, but we don't really have numbers to put to them. I mean, is there an alternative calculation that we need to do that would say, we're going to get to 1250, what would it take to get to 1250?
I don't.
I mean, you know, our experts have said, this is what our projections are. We're saying, we're not sure that it's going to work, but we don't have projections of our own to say this is why it won't work.
Just real quick, I came up with a calculation, even assuming, we assumed 0.5%, even if you start today and assume 1% growth, it'll take 90 years to get out to 1250.
At what rate?
1% growth.
So at double the rate of what you're projecting, it would take 90 years to get there.
It'll take 90 years to get to the 1250.
I guess when Lisa asked for data, I guess that's kind of where I'm headed here. It's like, what are we actually worried about? What is the volume, where's this going to come from, given that our experts have said 736 is projected? And I guess, Tom, maybe, do you have any experience with this?
Yeah, I do. I get pulled into this eventually.
Should have left it break.
We went round and round in one of the communities I was in, and they ended up painting the street. It was a 4-lane road, Maple Road. It ran through the heart of Birmingham and Bloomfield Township and parts of Oakland County, Michigan. They ended up painting it to the road diet standard. There was a petition of people that were so opposed to it that they petitioned for a charter amendment that it could never be reduced from 4 lanes. So I don't sense that's coming from your audience, but I would say to you that they painted it and they operated it as a road diet road. And when it was done, the petition went away and the opposition faded quickly. These things are not easy to conceptualize. People are comfortable with the way the road is configured now with its road lanes. And so it's hard to perceive that this works that way. So I guess what I would tell you is I think that that's a difficult thing to overcome. The problem you have here, and I talked to Chuck about this earlier, rather than going out there and tearing things up, can you paint this into configuration? Well, with your traffic circles, that just isn't going to work that well. So you're kind of left with the issue of the concern about what the traffic is going to do or not do, and your traffic engineers are telling you that the rate of growth is not significant enough to overcome the demand for the proposed road diet configuration. So I understand the concerns on both sides. I'm an advocate for road diets to begin with, so I have a bias going into it. It took a long time for me to get there. We narrowed roads in a number of places that accommodate quite well. Mike asked about the dimension of a lane and does it cause traffic to slow down? In my opinion, it absolutely does. In part, it isn't just the boundaries of the of the road itself. It's the proximity you are to an adjoining car when you have two lanes going in the same direction that causes one to be concerned about the speed of the traffic, and it does have a traffic calming impact. So, road engineers, design engineers took a long time to get to the point where they could even handle the concept of these road diets. They weren't the leaders in this issue from what I know of. It came from a lot of planning to begin with, but for you to have engineers that would advocate for something like this, they've obviously seen, the impact of these kinds of designs elsewhere and that they do work, so.
What about the fiscal impact?
Well, I think the fiscal impact is always an issue for me. Knowing that you can get other roads improved with that $1 million, I think that's a consideration. I think that there's, maybe if there's additional data that can be received, if there's some other, they've done the modeling, your engineers are advocating for it. From my standpoint, I have to follow the engineers.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions?
This typical street reconstruction, are these costs including the street lights? I see down here at the bottom, it does say for 8th Street, a street light, but what about at Harvard?
Yeah, that includes the traffic signal.
The 6.55?
Yeah.
And is there a middle turn lane for people turning left in either direction? Because you're narrowing the median, but there'll still be a left turn lane
Yes.
as well.
Yeah, for the side streets, yeah, throughout the corridor.
And then there'll be, I guess I need to go back to the slide, and then there will be a sidewalk and a shared use path with what we're calling the typical street. Perhaps we should go back to that slide on yours too. I'm trying to find it right now. That's slide 11.
Got a lot of slides.
Yeah, you were up to 39. So you gotta go back a ways. One more.
Yep. 1, 2 more.
There you go. There you go, right there. So right here, we'll have 2 lanes, but I don't see a center turn lane, so I guess that's why I'm kind of,
The center turn lane will be
Confused.
cut, the median will disappear at the intersection, and in this option, a 7-foot median with the 2-foot curves add to an 11-foot lane.
okay, I see, good. I just wanted to make sure that was, because in Kansas City, Missouri, that's a big problem with their 4 lanes, and also they have people parking in the right-hand lanes as well, which we don't have here.
And that's the same idea for both options. The left turn lanes, which aren't out there in existing conditions, the left turn lanes will be cut into the median.
So we're still getting the shared use path and the bike lane and a middle turn lane and 2 lanes of traffic each direction.
Correct.
That seems like a lot. I like the sound of it.
Quite a bit of roadway.
I can see why that costs more too, but it's good that we're still changing the existing design. So I think that's good. Because I think there needs to be change there. Harvard and Castle is just awful. People run that stop sign all the time. They don't understand 4-way stops anymore, it seems like, how they operate.
Okay. Any other comments or questions of these?
Yeah,
folks?
so I'm in favor of stoplights, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Oh, there you go.
Street
Okay.
lights.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you. Okay, we're going to open it up for public comment. How many people want to speak tonight? Okay, well, why don't we go about 4 minutes each? And who would like to be first? Come up. Give your name and where you live, and glad to have you.
You want me to sign in?
Sure.
Okay. My name is David Lawhorn, and I live at 4401 Heritage Drive in West Lawrence. And just wanted to kind of make some comments today. I don't really like either of the two designs. I do think your suggestion of having the lanes done again, like from Bob Billings down to Clinton Parkway is probably a pretty good idea. I'm not sure we need 8-foot bike paths and, 8-foot used lanes and all these other things. I can tell you, if you try putting a roundabout in and you don't just, reconstruct the road, and you do that, you're going to have all West Lawrence up in arms. I mean, just like the data you cited, Matthew. I mean, people, my neighbors, people I've talked to who live out there, they're not in favor of any of this at all. And actually, most of them wonder why, our city engineer has such an obsession with roundabouts. Because it seems like every time there's a road construction, they want to put a roundabout in. Even with Wakarusa, it's not even, why can you not just put a stoplight there? I mean, why can't you reconstruct the lanes there on, from Castle, from Bob Billings to 6th Street? You've got the 2 turn lanes there at 6th Street, and reconstruct it like you did from, Bob Billings down to Clinton Parkway, and do it that way. And if you want to put a 8-foot, multi-use path the bikes could ride on alongside, why don't you redo it? I mean, it's just a simple computer program, and recalculate the cost, because I think you'll have a lot of cost savings if you do that. I don't think it's, real difficult to do. I don't think that I'm not saying data's cooked, but you can also cherry pick data. I disagree that you always have to go with who your experts are. I think there's other opinions and other engineers who could give different ideas and different data in support of whatever they want. Because in listening to the presentations today, it sounded like everything was geared towards their putting in the roundabout and this complete concept, rather than other options for the commission to consider and put out there for, public, information and public comment on. I don't know, I've, lived here 21 years in West Lawrence. I haven't seen, but a couple accidents, and even with the new one that they put in at Inverness on Wakarusa, I think I saw 2 accidents in over 20 years, on Wakarusa. I've seen 2 that weren't fatalities, that were fender benders at that 4-way stop that, yes, people have problems with at, Castle and Harvard there. But I don't think that data for Lawrence is being presented. We've got national data, national opinions. It seems like a lot of it is opinions rather than true data. I think if you actually do the construction, it's a major north-south, thoroughfare. Give us a stoplight. Give us a stoplight on Wakarusa too, but give us a stoplight there. Give us the lanes, give us the turn lane to increase some safety there, but rework the entire plan instead of the traditional one that they're trying to force you or funnel you into, or their view of the complete. Give us a different option, rework it and rework the cost in doing something a little bit different, something that is existing. That would make people, happy, because I don't think you all want, everybody in Lawrence, West Lawrence up in arms, because, we elect you all to represent us and our concerns. I think, safety is a concern. You need to be, concerned about that. And we need to be concerned about the bicyclists, although, probably only 1% of our population or less. But I think that they need to have their area too. But I think that if you put in an 8-foot multi-use path, they can get on the path too. They could ride on that, to get around too. It's just like, have a little bit of common sense here in building, the road, like it should be done in the first place. So that's basically my comment.
Thanks, Dave. Who's next?
My name is Don Collins, and I live on Castle, like Matthew does. And can't get the pen to work. This is what I want to tell you, because what I see is just by eyesight, reality, not, drawings and plans and from the federal government and from everyone else. It's not, but here's what I see. You were talking about taking that lane, Castle, and taking it down to 1 lane, all right? Now, right now, today, there's construction going on at Bob Billings and Castle. And so on the southbound Castle, there is only 1 lane. That's the only 1 lane there. all right? And I've been by there, and there is cars backed up a block and a half on that stop sign because of the construction. And then you have a shopping center there with two banks, my bank is there, and some little offices at a gas station, and cars 4 and 5 deep waiting to get out on Castle because they can't get out on Castle because it would be one lane. That's one lane now, all right? And then tonight, when I came here, I came up Castle because I live south of Bob Billings. I came up Castle and had a right-hand turn lane, so I just went down. And on Bob Billings going west up to Castle, there was another line of cars a block and a half long, waiting for the light to turn. And that is what you're going to see if you break that down to one lane. And the idea of having 2 turn lanes into one lane is just totally ridiculous. And I really don't like roundabouts, okay? I don't. But that's up to you to put it in. I would love to see a stoplight there, though. Stoplight there, and also one on 8th Street, too. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is John Scullum, and I live at 1127 Randall Road, which is 1 block west of Harvard and Castle. I've lived there since 1973, and I love Castle. I think it's fine. He mentioned 22 crashes there, which is just incredible because I travel that intersection many times every day. And the other day I drove west and saw there was a policeman busy up at the corner with something, but I don't see those. I see some people speed by me on Castle, but they're getting down to 6th Street or they're getting to 15th. And he mentioned that construction's not what delays those cars. It's the traffic light that backs them up. I counted 30 cars there the other day, backed up at the traffic light. The construction's just on 15th, but the one lane on Castle backs it up. I have driven in 46 states, and I've always admired all the wide roads and avenues. I've driven over 1.5 million miles when I quit counting. And I don't know why anybody would want to ever take a good street and dummy it down. I don't understand that. And I don't even see how the cost of repaving and putting new curbs in would cost more than what they're trying to do and rebuild the whole road. Now here I'll probably get stoned. This is not Beijing where there is serious bicycle traffic in this city. There are some areas where people do use it to get themselves somewhere else. This is recreational bicycling, especially on the west side. And they have nice paths out there that I'm glad you built for them. My kids bicycled. I bicycled once upon a time. And we even drove a scooter around. And we stayed away from cars that might run over us. The bicycle path, there are no bicycles on Castle no matter what they say. There are no bicyclists there. There are 2 guys that bicycle seriously down Harvard, and they're obviously going to work or university or something. Backpack, and I recognize those 2 guys. There's no serious bicycling at that part of Castle. The guy killed at 6th Street chose to go that way. There were other better places to go. Now, I think they mentioned moving the crossing at 8th Street further down. Is that correct? Did you mention that? Where are you?
Moving the crossing.
8th Street? Sir, if we could have your comments this way, we'll get an
Going
answer.
south, I
We'll get
think
an
they
answer
said,
to
is
your
that
question.
correct? And there was a child killed there, but then a stop sign was put up, and I think it solved the problem. It had to do with the lack of stop sign at that time. So, what do I want? Leave it as is, and I have 1,000 more comments, but don't bring bicycles to Castle. Have them go have their entertaining bicycling in their neighborhoods.
just like they've been doing. That's not serious transportation on the west side of town. Maybe a little bit around campus and a little bit on town. I do see on 23rd Street sometimes people riding bikes on the sidewalk. But they're not riding those big hills there. Okay, and I did know a lady killed on 15th Street on a bicycle as well. Lived across the street from me. I don't want to invite bicycles anywhere where cars are going. Not that they don't have a right. It's just that it's dangerous.
Thank you.
My name's Tom Molinazzi, and I live at 4505 Woodland Drive here in Lawrence. First of all, Stuart, the 85 percentile speed means 85% of the cars are going that speed or less. Capacity, I come up with that 1900, they're 3,600 seconds in an hour. 2-second headways between cars gives you 1,800 vehicles per hour. We never design for capacity. Never, never, never. We design hopefully for level service B in Lawrence, Kansas, maybe level service C, but you would not accept level service C, ladies and gentlemen. Just remember that. Okay. We have 3 major arterials: Iowa, Cassold, and Wakarusa. We don't want to do anything that's might encourage some of our traffic to go on Lawrence Avenue and Monterey Way. People are going to find the easiest path to get from A to B. I do think when Wakarusa starts filling up, as it will, because I was told many years by somebody from KDOT that the busiest intersection in Lawrence, Kansas is going to be 6th and Wakarusa, and by God, it's starting to turn that way. People are going to find the easiest path, and if Wakarusa starts clogging up, guess what they're going to do? They're either going to come over to Cassold or go west. They're going to find another way to get across town. That's it. Thank you.
May I ask a question, sir?
Sure.
On the 85th percentile speed?
Sure.
That was 43 at what we were talking about?
Yes.
Does that mean that 1 in every 7 cars goes faster than 43?
That means 15% of the cars are going faster. I don't know where you got the 1/7.
Well, I mean, 15% is like 1 out of 7, right?
Yeah. Do you know what the 85 percentile speed is on K10?
No.
79.3 miles an hour, and the speed limit is 70.
Great. Thanks.
My name is Jim Mullins. I live at 1305 Jonathan Drive, right around the corner from 13th and Cassold. My typical day is as I leave the house somewhere between 6:45 and 7:15. I go out of my driveway to Jonathan Drive down to 13th Street, and I take a left and go to 13th Street and Cassold. And during that 7 o'clock hour, it's not really bad there. If I want to go north, which is where I'm going to go, because I'm going to the 6th Street IV to have coffee. But when I come back, and I come back to my office and I work a while, and then I want to go to the post office, I have a post office box down on 31st Street. So now I want to go, come out to 13th and Castle, and I want to make a left turn. Well, the left turn is much more difficult there for the express reason that the traffic signal at Bob Billings in Castle holds traffic for a while so that the street is clear. But the four-way stop or a roundabout at Harvard and Castle, the traffic never stops going south. So how do I get across there? I have to just almost gut it sometimes to get onto that street. If you go to one lane, think about it, one lane, and there's 2 lanes now, I'll never get on the damn street. And then on the people that live on Castle, between 13th Street and back, and all the way from Harvard all the way down to Presbyterian Manor, The people that live on that street, they'll never get out of their driveways. They have a hard enough time today getting out of their driveways. The people that on the little cul-de-sac across the street from 13th on the west side of Castle, they're gonna have a difficult time getting out of there. They do now. I'm just sharing with you guys, we need to keep it, to build the road like you've built from Bob Billings clear to 31st Street. You've got 4 lanes, no bicycles on it. You've got a shared use path on the west side, and it works effectively, it works good. If you want to slow the traffic down, if you want to calm them a little bit, let me tell you what you do. You talk to the chief up here and say, Chief, why don't you put some more guys out there with radar guns, and I'll guarantee you'll slow that traffic down. And I think it'd probably be a little cheaper than building these roads like this. Now, I know being politicians that you all need some cover, so I'm going to give you some cover here, okay? You've already got it once, but I'll give it to you again.
I had for cover.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll give you mine in a minute. Okay? This is a survey that the city did. The first one is, the top sheet is 2007, and a satisfaction with transportation services, but down at the bottom it says transportation issues that you receive the most emphasis over the next 2 years by major category. Number 1 issue, ease of east-west travel in Lawrence. Number 3, ease of north-south travel in Lawrence, okay? People are telling you, survey guy, this is 2007, okay? Let's go to 2011, which is the next sheet, okay? Same category. Number 1 is ease of east-west travel in Lawrence. Number 4, ease of north-south travel in Lawrence. Okay? Let's go to 2015. Again, your survey. Same thing, east-west of travel in Lawrence. And 4th, again, is east-west, north-south travel in Lawrence. Guys, people are telling you in their surveys, they don't want this traffic calming garbage. They really don't. What they want is they want streets so that we can move the traffic through this community. And Castle, whether you like it or not, and you don't say it's a major arterial or whatever you want to call it, but it's an arterial. Traffic moves through there. And you bottleneck it, and I'll guarantee you're going to have some hot people on your hands. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you. Who else? Wendell?
Wendell and I work together, so he's being very nice. Paula Bastamar, I live at 1136 Parkside Circle, right next to Dadbury Park. Like all of my colleagues, I drive that intersection. I've lived there for 25 years, drive through that intersection minimum of twice a day, to and from work, frequently a dozen times a day. A couple things I want to point out, because I know you were concerned about safety. I live between the Circle at Monterey and Harvard and the four-way stop at Castle and Harvard. I will guarantee you, having walked through that circle and multiple others, roundabouts are the most difficult things to get across. People do not wait for you. If it's a four-way stop, they wait for you. If you put in a stoplight, they wait for you. We're going to have children crossing that because now Sunset Hill will be open. That's the reason there was a three-way stop put in there at 8th and Castle, was because of a child. So you start telling me these roundabouts and people that you're, by your statistics, saying it's going to decrease the travel time by a minute. Okay, you're going to decrease the travel time, so you're increasing the amount of cars going through that intersection repeatedly. Now you're going to tell me a small child is going to get through there? The other thing I don't like about the roundabouts is you're always filling them full of plant life, which is lovely, but you can't see through it. And so when I'm trying to walk there at Monterey and Harvard, people can't see me coming around there. And everyone going from north to south thinks that's a thoroughfare. They don't pause. And if you think I'm exaggerating that, come walk with me in the mornings. I think the most dangerous intersections to cross a street on are the roundabouts. And so when you talk about safety, and you're talking about children, and we have a lot of seniors in our area, give me a four-way stop or stoplight so I can get across it. And the other thing is, I don't know whatever prompted this discussion in the first place. I do not know why someone's talking $6 million, $5 million. There ought to be a solution. Concrete would be nice. The other thing is, I would argue with the semantics. 22 crashes. Boy, it sounds like something that's in some sort of film. 22 fender benders, maybe. Having lived there for 25 years, I've never seen anything more than a fender bender due to inattentive driving. Okay, you said 2 injuries. I take your word for it. I'm not there 24/7. But I think when you talk about the volume of cars going through there, there's not that much percentage, although it does seem to meet somebody's threshold that we can get some funding. One last thing. State of Kansas is broke. Anyone guaranteeing they're going to give us that money? You keep saying, we're going to get this money from the state. Good luck.
No, it's a business meeting, folks.
That is a fair question, though, regarding
Oh,
the
it is,
state.
it is, yeah.
My name is Wendell Graham. My wife and I, Glenna, live at Castle and 10th Street. We've lived there for 35 years, right on Castle. Most of my thunder has been stolen already by previous speakers. My primary comment is going to be, this is an experiment, pure and simple. Let's not experiment with this much money. Let's keep it simple. Let's leave it as it is. 4 lanes, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendell. Yes, ma'am.
Marlene Merrill, 2917 Westdale Road. And like everyone who has talked about it before, Castle is a major thoroughfare, an arterial. It's not and should not be designed to be experimented upon. I also don't believe that unless that you keep it a 4-way street, that traffic demands will be met. Traffic constantly backs up on Harvard trying to get across that intersection. I think that if we go to the traditional, typical street, the safety was mentioned, and the 11-foot lanes do appear to be effective in terms of slowing. And as somebody else mentioned, there is always the police out there to enforce traffic. Castle is not a street, I don't think, to be experimented upon. I think one of the things that you need to consider is that if you do this experiment, what will be the cost to fix it? And with that in mind, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Ron Edvornik. I live at 3021 Rimrock Drive. I was the chief engineer for the Ham Companies for 36 years, and I was the project manager on most of the major roads that we're talking about. So I've had a lot of experience. I probably built more roundabouts than you've got in Lawrence over the years. They work. The main concern I have is at Harvard, trying to put a roundabout in there. When I've been through there, they've got, during school, they got a school crossing guard.
Amen.
And so you've got somebody out there with a stop sign trying to stop traffic in a roundabout, and you're just going to have a pileup because, as someone mentioned, they're hard to see around, and it's just going to bring things to a screeching halt. One of the fears that I have is over the years I've seen, many years ago when they built 6th Street up from Castle west, they didn't build a center turn lane in it, and then they realized later, oh man, we need a turn lane. Well, the second contract they lit to build that extra turn lane to widen 6th Street out was almost as much as the original contract to build 6th Street. And it was just like, we doubled our money. And I'm afraid that if this road isn't built with the right widths that you need, if you have to go back and you realize we've got to widen it back out so we've got 4 lanes, then you got to widen out each side, you got to change all the storm sewers, and it's a major project. So I'm worried about going from four lanes to two. If you're going north from Bob Billings, you're gonna have about a block of a weaving lane, and during rush hour traffic, it's gonna be a delivery. So I really like the typical street option. I think it's the best.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Yes, sir.
My name is Dick Lind. I live at 1540 Alvamar Drive. And I think as commissioners that have been voted on by the population of this city, and the comments have been made today, even though Dave's report was very interesting and so on, I don't think it was enough information in there to convince me that you all should change the concept of Castle Road. It should stay. Granted, money is very important, very scarce, but for the people in this community, and especially in West Lawrence, they need to have an avenue, a thoroughfare to go from the south end to the north. And by changing that, I think you'll greatly reduce the efficiency of the traffic flow in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Trudy Gilliland, and I live at 726 Castle. And I live 2 houses from the 8th Street stop sign. And at times, it is very hard to get out, especially at peak hours. And also, when the trucks come in at West Lakes, at times, they've had people from the store come out and stop traffic, just so the trucks can back in. And if you're going to have a one lane coming this way, coming down Castle, that's going to be a bottleneck. So that's all I have to say about the one lane.
Thanks, Street. Other comment? Yes.
I'm Dwight Dare. I live at 3112 Riverview Road. And there's a couple statistics that mentioned about needing more statistics. One you won't find anywhere is the fact that truckers that use roundabouts don't report the problems they have getting around roundabouts. They might turn into the dispatcher, and whoever has to go out and repair the damage of torn up the center part of roundabouts that are torn up, there's no statistics on how much repair work is done to those on an annual basis. Matter of fact, there's a nice, beautiful roundabout in Newton, Kansas, and the truckers keep tearing down the street lights because it's too tight for them to get around. And another thing about all these statistics that are out there are beautiful about speed and everything, but traffic only, on a single lane, traffic only travels as fast as the slowest vehicle. So you can put up how much time it's going to take to get from point A to point B, but you know, if you have somebody doing 20 miles an hour, you can throw those statistics away because they're useless. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Gary Weber, 907 Merle Court. I live in Sunset Hill neighborhood, which is adjacent to this section of street. And I think you need to hear from one person tonight who's in favor of the complete street option. So here I am, in favor of complete street. I'm also the secretary of the Pedestrian Coalition here in the Lawrence Pedestrian Coalition. And we've been involved in this particular project for 2 years now. From the very beginning, we've sponsored a forum here to have David and his crew come and talk to us. We've looked at every aspect. We've talked about it meeting after meeting, and we come down on the complete street aspect, on the complete street project on this one. This concept of data versus anecdotal, it's kind of pervades our culture right now. You know, David's brought you all this data that shows you that the complete street option has plenty of capacity for the load that's going to be on that street. But no one seems to believe it. Everyone says, oh, it's going to be more. They're going to come from K10. They're going to, I tend to go with the data, and I trust the data. And if a professional says to me, this is the projected load in 2040, I tend to believe them. I don't tend to say, well, I look out my window and it's pretty busy out there. I don't believe them. So I think if you're going to have professional engineers design your streets, you need to believe the data they bring to you. And the data says that the complete street options is adequate for the flow through 2040. I think it's interesting that a couple of people have got up here today and say they never see bicycles on this section of Cassold. There's a reason why you don't see bicycles on this section of Cassold. It's a deadly street for bicycles. It's a 2-lane, high-speed road with no bicycle lane and a tiny little sidewalk on one side that's all broken up. It is impassable to a bicyclist, absolutely. So when I ride up from the south side and I come up to the top of the hill and I get to Bob Billings Parkway, I'm done. I am not going on Cassold. There is no way. Now, I understand that the typical street options give me an option. I cross over, I go on the 8-foot mulch, that's fine, and I appreciate that. It's high time that we had some way for a bicycle to get through this stretch of street. But you don't, if you ever wonder why you don't see a lot of bicyclists on a bicycle lane on a 4-lane divided street, it's because the traffic speeds are so high that it's extremely intimidating for a bicycle to share a street with a car going 45 miles an hour or 50 miles. It's terrifying, frankly, and I won't do it. I ride for recreation and I ride to and from when doing errands, and I'm retired. I used to ride to go to work, but I avoid big 4 or 5 lane streets like this with 45 mile an hour speed limits or 40 mile an hour speed limits, and I don't ride with traffic on those streets. And if you put that bike lane on a 5-lane street, you're not going to see much use on that bike lane. They're all going to be up on the 8-foot multi-use. So it makes more sense to me to slow the traffic down, and I think you're going to see that. If you go with this complete street options, you're going to see slower speeds, and then the bicyclists are going to be willing to get out there with the cars, and then the pedestrians are dealing with traffic that's going significantly slower. I agree there's some issues with the roundabout and crossing it. I've experienced that too, but I think it's similar to the reaction of Lawrencians when roundabouts first came to this city. They won't work, they're horrible, they're terrible, they won't do what you say they do. And then sure enough they do. They slow traffic, they make traffic continue, they stop bottlenecks, they stop the side streets coming in, they allow them to enter. So, you know, to say that it won't work for pedestrians, I think you're going to find that it does when it's finally done. Finally, I think the real issue for everybody in the coalition and for me is safety, 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 safety. I mean, it's not that it's just safer for the cars, because it is. The complete street option is safer for the cars. You have fewer collisions, few contact points, slower speeds. Accidents happen, but they're fender benders instead of somebody smashing into somebody at a traffic light going 45 miles an hour. So it's safer for the cars, but man, is it safer for bicycles. It's so much safer and it's so much safer for pedestrians to slow everything down, to make it calmer, to make it less of a highway and more of a street. Yes, Mike?
Oh, I was just saying.
4 minutes?
Yep.
Thank you so much
Thank you,
for
Terry.
letting me talk to you today.
Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
I'm Phil Fredericks. I live at 1119 Castle Drive. I'm actually right in the middle of all this stuff. A lot of good comments tonight. I'm going to try to touch on some things that people haven't even said anything about. They don't know because they don't live there. I have to back out every day. I'm probably luckier than a lot of people because I do have room. If it's a really busy time, I can turn around in my yard and get out. The biggest thing I got a problem with is every time I leave my house, I got to make a U-turn. And I've had more scares and close calls from the U-turns than anything else. When I come from the south to go to my house, I live 3 houses south of Harbor on the west side. I have to get in the left lane, signal, wait for everything to be just right, back up traffic myself, and flip a U to go into my driveway 3 houses south. If I go to the north, I have to back out of my driveway, and this is a scary one. You go south to the first cross street, and I have to leave half of my car sticking out in the street, the other nose of it in the other lane over there, waiting to turn into the opposite lane to go north. Either that or go clear around 10 miles, or a couple miles out of my way. To me, it makes sense for the city and for us as residents on that stretch that have, there's 12 of us, I think, that have driveways there, to eliminate the median and put a big turn lane there. We could come in, drop into that turn lane, turn into our driveway. We could get back out and go north if we wanted to. Snow removal, plow it down through there. I've had my mailbox knocked down twice by the city, by the snow, you know, coming off the snowplow. Another thing, you know, taking it down to, well, before I go to there, the stoplight thing, in my book, is the only way to go. You got people, I watch them walk down the street, families, and they go to the little playground across the street at the church. They go to that corner, and they're gonna have to go through that roundabout. And now, it's kind of tricky now to get across there. You know, a lot of people don't like to yield, you know. And also, you know, somebody mentioned the crosswalk with the kids from the school. And stoplight there with a good crosswalk, safest thing we could ever do. Go to single lane, you got your trash truck. Trash truck comes down the street. He's gonna stack cars up all the way down the street. Postman's the same way, delivering mail. Hy-Vee sends trucks down through there all the time. It's just gonna do nothing but bottle everything up. I actually wish, I did your survey, and it was a good thing, you know. I would've liked to talk to you in person, but that didn't happen. I wish these guys would've come and talked to me. I mean, we live on the street. We know what's there. Come and, I'll give you a glass of iced tea, we'll sit down and watch cars, man. It's pretty crazy sometimes. And we've got to move traffic. We've got to move traffic down that street. That's all the bottom line. I don't know if there's anything too much else that anybody else hasn't touched on. The biggest thing for me is that median, getting across. I don't like having to do a U-turn every time I come out of my driveway. And if you could put a divided part up further close to the deal, but why not just do it like you did down at the stoplight to the south? It's all open. You can plow it. You've got a turn lane coming in there. And, well, that's all I got.
Okay, thanks, Phil.
My name's Gene Johannes. I live on Yale Road, 3520. It's about 5 houses west of Castle. A couple of things that have kind of interested me tonight. The gentleman who spoke about how he won't ride his bicycle on Castle anymore because it's too dangerous. I wonder if he rides on Bob Billings Parkway, the Clinton Lake Parkway, 6th Street, Iowa Street. I mean, where does he ride if he doesn't ride on 4-lane roads? I have a hard time understanding how he actually negotiates around, but that's neither here nor there. I want to share with you, last night at 6:30, I came up from the south on Castle, and when I got to 15th Street, light turned red and I stopped. But the one thing I noticed was it is signaling traffic over on the west side of Castle coming south, like that gentleman referred to. Cars were backed up it's single lane there. Cars were backed up all the way to Oxford Court. And because it's only one lane. And to me, when I heard the whole concept of trying to change this to 4-lane to 1 lane, I thought, who was sitting around with nothing better to do than to say, oh, let's try to put Castle right down to 2 lanes instead of 4. I'm not sure how that whole process got started, because to me, it's a no-brainer. It should have never even been considered in the first place. And the money saved making all these studies and giving us all these cute charts and graphs that we've seen tonight could have dropped that $1.6 million extra, or that it was going to cost, could have cut into that and substantially reduced that amount. I just don't understand how this thing got started in the first place. So my recommendation is, it's fine, leave well enough alone. It's not broke, don't fix it. It's working just fine. And if you go to that single lane with a 5-foot bicycle lane, I think that's correct, is that right? 2.
Sir.
Well, the one, he was talking about one in the street. He was talking about one in the street that would be right next, where the trash trucks could get the garbage without blocking the 1 lane of through traffic, and where people who have car trouble or something could pull over into the bicycle lane. I'm not sure it's legal for motorized vehicles to use the bicycle lanes. But at any rate, if it's there, I'll guarantee you people are going to pass on the right in that bicycle lane. If somebody's not going the speed limit, or if somebody is going the speed limit in front of them, and they want to go 5 or 10 miles an hour faster right there because they're late for work, they're going to pull over into the bicycle lane now. If I'm a bicyclist, then I know that the traffic has that option to pull in behind me. I'm going to be a little scared, and I'll probably join that guy and never ride on Castle. So, thank you.
Thank you. Other comment? Yes, sir.
I'm Bill Wilson, and we own a house at the corner of Castle and Harvard. And we do not live there, we rent that facility. But Linda and I got in the car today, just drove the whole distance of Castle to see what all has been done, trying to look at what the real problem is, what we're trying to solve. And I think everybody's intention is good. I agree with almost all the people that have talked tonight. I have many of the same concerns that they have. Being a property owner on that particular intersection is a little bit challenging to say, how's this going to work? What's it going to do to all the things that everybody's discussed about? One of the things that I was just shocked when we drove drove the distance north to south both times. The terrible sidewalk path, many of the sides of the street have no sidewalk at all. Some of them are no wider than this, honestly. So I guess whatever we decide to do, whether we do have bicycles or don't have bicycles, we do have pedestrians, we do not have pedestrians, please keep that in your planning consideration, because I walk out by Sunflower School where somebody did something very nice, and I walk almost daily out there. And with a wider sidewalk, and many of the areas that we're talking about have no houses on them or fields and all that sort of thing. Why don't we think in terms of a wider sidewalk, and at least all on one side? Some sides of the street have no sidewalk. Some of them have narrow ones that not even 2 people could walk on, let alone a pedestrian and a cyclist. You know, I think we need to look at the total picture. I love from Bob Billings south, that's wonderful. It accommodates both. and it's good. Why not continue? I think that's what Mike was saying earlier. Why not continue that plan throughout the thing? I happen to live on Lawrence Avenue, and I've got a street up there I'd love to have a roundabout on. I mean, I would love to have it, because you can't see from either south or north if you're coming up trail to try to how you're going to maneuver to get on to Lawrence Avenue. I don't live right at that intersection, but I walk it, and that is a real challenge. And someday, I'd vote for that roundabout immediately. I have no personal opinion about roundabouts. My wife doesn't like them, but I think they're good as long as everybody knows that people on your left have the right of way. And there are an awful lot of people in our community that don't understand that simple rule. And so it can be quite a guessing game, and slows the process. When everybody understands the rules, you can move traffic pretty quickly around a roundabout. I agree with that. But what I don't agree with is I would never consider a two-lane roundabout on that corner. My guy should be right in everybody's backyard on that particular corner. The pedestrian thing's already been spoken to. I don't want to repeat myself, but I think we ought to look at the total picture. The dollars are important. They're scarce. They're getting more scarce, and the whole world's getting more scarce. But let's try to think in terms of what would really work on that street, a major thoroughfare for our community. And I can't help but believe, and I have no statistics to prove any of it, that we're not going to continue to grow in Lawrence. We're going to have more automobiles as the university grows. We've got every reason to take a very long, careful look at what we're talking about doing here. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Okay.
I'm Glenna Graham, and my husband has already spoken. And we live at the corner of 10th and Castle. We've lived there 35 years, and I don't know how anyone can say that the traffic has not increased, because it is amazing. And we have now a bunch of college kids who live west on 10th Street. And they come barreling down 10th Street and don't even stop to get on to Castle. And one thing that really concerns me is putting a roundabout at Harvard because of the children. They need to have a safe way to get to school. And I don't think a roundabout is the way to go. I think a stoplight there. And also, one thing, were roads built for bicycles or for cars? Granted, bicycles need a place to go, but not on a major arterial street. Thank you.
Courtney Shipley. I live at 1125 Castle. I'm one of the 20-something houses that actually has to back onto that street. It's unfortunate that there is no neighborhood association, because I see what happens at all these other neighborhoods like East Lawrence, where you literally can't lay a brick without somebody getting a meeting to make sure that everything is agreed upon. There is no neighborhood association there, although I see you all seem to sort of agree about the roundabout. I'm whistling in the wind about that, I get it. But you're right, if it is there to move traffic, sometime someone allowed homes to be built there. And I don't know what responsibility you feel like you owe those homes. It's not safe to back out, it's not safe for children, It's certainly not safe for children to be crossing at that intersection. I can see that you've all mostly kind of made up your mind. What I would kind of request is considering for some of us, letting us have circle drives or hammerheads, which I think are not really allowed right now. Maybe that would be something you guys can consider for some of us that kind of find that difficult or dangerous. But I think what I'm gonna walk away with when you guys all decide it still needs to be a 2-lane highway, is, you know, I saw stoplights or stop signs and beacons and the little flags go up all down Louisiana. And even I think Commissioner Boley counted up all the stop signs that she had to go through to get down Louisiana. Why? Safety. We want our kids on that street to be safe. How come those kids get to be safe and the kids on my street don't? And Crossgate, ooh, one of my favorites, Crossgate. We don't want trucks driving through Crossgate because I believe it was a quote, we like to take care of our homeowners and their investments. What about my home and what about my investment? There was a beacon and a stop sign put up further down 6th Street where there wasn't even a sidewalk. I think I even remember Commissioner Herbert saying, cart before the horse. We don't even have a sidewalk and we're paying for a stop sign. So we've put up all kinds of safety measures all over town, but here. So I get that a lot of people have already kind of made up their mind. With respect, please reconsider, think about it really hard. And I want to say just one other thing, please. Whatever you wanted to call it, that Commissioner Herbert brought around, explaining and trying to get feedback. Wow, do you want this road, yes or no? That's not like adult dialogue to me. This is literally says, do you like me, yes or no, like all high school quizzes or the time you had a little boyfriend. That's not, yeah, I would have rather talked, and I did. I sought you out because this was not good enough for me. I wanted to talk to you all, and I did. And some of my neighbors, obviously not all of them, we don't have a neighborhood association. We certainly need one for this very reason. So I hope you will think very hard about the fact that people actually live there. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comment? Okay, back to the commission then.
There were 2 things I had questions on.
Okay.
Courtney's question just now that perhaps circle drives are not allowed off of Castle, if we can get that answered. Yeah. And then...
The comment regarding a back-end space or a hammerhead. Yeah.
And then
We'll find
Phil Fredericks mentioned eliminating the median between that stretch of Harvard and 13th Street so that people can get in and out there left turn wise. I wanted to at least put my flag up that I'd be interested in that area, that stretch, not having a median.
Good idea. Anything else?
Yeah, I've got a few questions. Somebody brought up the idea of just repaving the road and just keeping it at that. I got several emails with that suggestion also, so I was hoping, David, you could just speak to that as to why we're having to redo the whole thing.
Well, with our pavement condition index, it's 43. It's beyond what we think would be able to continually do maintenance projects on it. We have a significant amount of subgrade failure, so we really need to remove the pavement, get in, treat the subgrade, and then put new pavement on top of it. So we could keep mill and overlaying it, but it wouldn't cure the problem. We'd still have those shrink swell events that create potholes in the road. So we've been out there and we've done a lot of skim patches, a lot of pothole patches, but it really needs to be fully reconstructed.
And when this road was completed in, what, 1972, I believe it was, the subgrade wasn't used that we use today, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Today we treat the subgrade.
So that makes it more difficult. Okay. The other question I had, it was brought up a few times by some folks about whether it's legal to use the bike lanes to drive your cars in, and I know I spoke about that a little bit earlier, so could we get a understanding of that? Is it legal to use that bike lane? Is it legal?
Not to, it's not to drive a vehicle in, no.
Okay, but the folks who live on Castle are gonna have to use that potentially to get out of their driveways, that's my understanding. Is that what you were suggesting, or?
Yeah, and both options have the bike lanes, that'll be both options. The Complete Streets option had a wider bike lane, so you would have the ability to get out of the traffic lane if you were turning. I mean, you wouldn't use it as a through lane, you shouldn't use it as a through lane. But you still will have to cross the bike lane to get in and out of the driveways.
Would somebody be ticketed if they were using that bike lane to either back into the street or pull into their driveway?
I don't believe so, if they're not using it as a through lane, if they're just backing out or pulling in, they shouldn't be ticketed.
Okay. I got one more question. Carrie brought up about riding bikes on 45-mile-an-hour streets, and I know with the Complete Streets, we still have the bike lanes in the road with no protection. And my understanding is that the speed limit's going to stay the same, so how does that address that, or is that something that needs to be addressed?
Well, we wouldn't recommend increasing the speed limit. I think that would be unpopular. Typically, if you're looking at assigning speed limits to streets, it's based off of the average speed. And so with having average speeds, if we were to assign speed limits to it, it should be a higher speed than it is today. But with either option, having a dedicated 5-foot bike lane on a typical street option, even if you had traffic going faster than 40 miles an hour, you still have the space. Obviously, it's not as wide as having a buffered bike lane. So that would be a safety advantage for bicyclists to have the buffered bike lane, slower speed of traffic versus having a 5-foot lane next to two through lanes that are going at a higher speed. So that would be a perceived safety benefit for bicyclists.
Okay. Now, the speed through there, I thought it was 45, is it not, right now?
Right now, it's 35 south of Harvard and then 30 north of
30,
Harvard.
okay.
South of Bob Billings, it's 40.
40, okay.
All the way to 31st
All right.
Street.
Thank you. Thanks, David.
Any other questions? Comments? You got comments? Sure. Thanks, David.
I appreciate the comments tonight, and I appreciate the concerns. I think that the goals that we need to have for this stretch of road are to make it safe for everybody who wants to use it. That includes cars, pedestrians, and bicycles. How do you make this safe? I think what you need to do is have people driving pretty much close to the speed limit, because that's what we want to accomplish with our speed limits. And I appreciate that there was a comment about having the police enforce the speed limits. There are a lot of demands on our police force. I mean, we have a lot of things that our police do for us every day. And we rely on them to enforce our traffic laws, but there are limits to the amount of attention that they can put on any one stretch of road. And I think what the engineers are saying is that we need to design this stretch of street for the speed that we want our drivers, our car drivers, to drive. I mean, that's your opportunity to actually affect how fast people drive, is by designing the street. I don't know if that's a relatively recent concept in traffic engineering, but I think it's a firmly established concept at this point. So we need to try to design this street for speeds that will be driven at the limits that we've established on there, and steady traffic through the stretch of road. And I think Gary made a really interesting point. I mean, we've got data, if the data isn't right, then we need to get some reality check on what the data we're using. I think Dr. Molinazzi had a good point. You don't design for capacity. What do you design for? I don't know. But I'd like to see, if we're going to spend $6 million or more on this stretch of road, I'd like to make sure that we're doing it based on data with some response to the anecdotal experience that you all have had. A lot of you have been in the neighborhood 30 years. You've seen it change. We have a responsibility to the entire community to make good decisions, and good decisions many times are based on data. And then we get back to the cost. I mean, we have a responsibility to our citizens to spend our resources wisely. And there again, I think it comes back to data. So appreciate you hearing me out. Thanks.
Sure. Anyone else? Tom?
So what I would suggest at this point is that this is a 17 project, and I think it was a project that was intended to be done, commitment to the community. So I'd like to return this to a regular agenda and give you, the two obvious choices that you saw, heard the discussion about, and we need to get it voted up and down, whichever choice you want to go with, so we can move ahead with the design and get this thing at a state where we can get it constructed next year.
And our first meeting in September is the 6th?
Yes.
Is that the perfect date to do it?
I think so.
Okay. Everybody good with that? September 6th, this item will return to the agenda for a decision on which option to proceed with. Fair enough? Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Next item then. Is everybody leaving? Okay. Okay, the next item then is to receive the summary of the 2017 capital improvement project for Wakarusa Drive and Harvard Road intersection. David.
All right, this will be a little quicker. We don't have a full presentation with this project. Last year, we accepted preliminarily highway safety funds to reconstruct the intersection of Harvard and Wakarusa with a roundabout. We proceeded to the field check design plan stage with the project, and would recommend proceeding with final design of plans to include a 2-lane roundabout on Wakarusa and 1 lane on the side roads. It would be similar to the one that was installed at Wakarusa and Inverness 2 years ago. I will pull up a picture of the design concept.
Is this going to fix that jutting out that the road does right to the north of Inverness and Wakarusa?
Yeah, so the project limits would be, let me zoom out a little more, would be where we left off when we did the last project, on the south end, tie-in to the already widened 5-lane section with bike lanes, continue north just through the roundabout. And again, that roundabout would be sized identical to the one that's at Inverness. It would have 2 lanes in each direction. On Wakarusa, it would have 1 lane on Harvard Drive. We would need to get easements from all 4 of the corners, or right-of-way, to accommodate the widening and the sidewalk. The project would be similar to the walkthroughs that we've already constructed: concrete pavement, 5 11-foot lanes, center turn lane, bike lanes, 6-foot sidewalks on both sides, landscaping in the median. So we're kind of at the stage here where we want to proceed to final design. This was originally scheduled for construction next year, 2017. It has the KDOT safety money, and to answer the question regarding the availability of the safety funds, those are federal highway funds that are passed through the state, so there's no ability for the state to use those for other purposes or other departments. So those are still will be there if we choose to proceed with final design and construction of the roundabout. So with that, that's where we're at in the process right now, and would just stand for any questions.
Thanks for answering that, David.
Questions of David?
Have you already, have we gone through the acquisition of the properties around yet?
We have not. That would be the next stage.
The next stage.
Step to do, yeah. So we have on the south east corner already have, a majority of it. I think we would need a little more, but obviously those other 3 corners, we would need a sliver from all 3. So here where the retirement community is, when that replatted a couple of years ago, they dedicated right-of-way for future intersection improvements. So there's not as significant as acquisition on that corner as the other 3. Obviously, we're going to try to squeeze everything in, sidewalks on the back of the curb at the intersection to minimize the impact of adjacent property owners. Look at screening that we can do with trees and restore things to a good condition after the project.
So is the green line on there, the green line that I see, is that the easement line?
No,
What
that's
is that?
just the back of the curb.
Oh, the curb, okay.
Yeah.
David, do you have crash information at this intersection?
We do. In the 3 years prior to applying for the safety funds, I believe it was 11 crashes, and it was 1 or 2 injuries. I have it written down. We had 7 in 2014. I don't recall the number in 2015, but it's been pretty steady. And so again, when KDOT looked at the number of crashes for the 3 years when we applied for the safety funds, it met their threshold or the cost-benefit ratio to mitigate or reduce the cost of crashes through the expense of constructing the roundabout.
The roundabout to the south there, what's the crash information there?
So that was completed at the end of 2014, so we have about a year and a half of data.
You said that earlier, I just couldn't remember.
Yeah, and we've had 6 crashes. 3 of them involved 2 vehicles. 3 were motorists sliding off, going too fast in snow or ice conditions. We generally don't attribute those to normal conditions because it's snow and ice. So we had 3 crashes in the year and a half that since we've constructed it. In the 3 years prior, there were 8. So there wasn't a whole lot before. There haven't been a whole lot since then. The one thing that I would point out with it, either that intersection and this one even more so is the capacity and traffic flow standpoint. So there's the crashes, but right now with the 4-way stop and the peak hour, traffic queues up significantly, and so this is a solution to accommodate traffic now and well into the future. So.
Well, as David will attest to, I'm not a real fan of roundabouts. I think we had the battle on the one to the south there several years ago. And
You got pretty fired up about this one, if I recall, that night, actually.
Yeah. Maybe I don't understand it, David, that's fine.
You just don't drive them enough, Mike. Just go
I
and
think
drive
we ought to
them.
be banked, you know. No return or something. I don't know. There's something about them I just, I have a tough time with, but,
Well, they reduce the points of conflict, right? I mean, that's the deal with roundabouts, right?
Maintain
That's why they're
flow.
safer.
Yeah.
what is our feedback on the bicycle traffic that uses the one to the south? Do we have any feedback there? Have we seen anything that, because, you know, and I know the way it's designed, you have to go up on the curb, you know, the path it comes up on and go down to the east and back around. Does it work?
I haven't had any negative feedback from any bicyclists on the roundabout to the south.
Okay. Still don't like it.
Well, I have to admit, I'm a pretty big fan of roundabouts. I like them. I really do.
Okay.
I use that one in Inverness most days. I can't say every day, but I think it's great. Every once in a while, I hit someone that does not understand the person already inside of it has the right of way, but I have that problem at 19th and Barker, so, and that's a one-lane roundabout. But they usually stop in time.
That's good.
At least when I didn't realize how that sounded.
Yeah,
That didn't sound so usually.
So we can account now for 2 of those 6
That's
crashes.
right.
You know, one of the things that, you know, we face in Lawrence is going to be here right now and right away is we have to design our streets so that we can kind of dampen the exuberance of the young folks who are coming in all the time. And that's a significant problem that David has to try to deal with. I mean, it's not just, you know, the folks who've been here 30 years. I mean, we have this new crop of kids who are coming in every year, and they're pretty excited to be here, which is great. But I mean, I think we have to design our streets with that in mind, and reducing the points of contact or points of conflict by putting roundabouts in is excellent traffic design. That's all there's to it.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the 2-lane roundabout, if I didn't say that clearly enough last time.
As long as everybody stops when they're supposed to, right?
You know, for me, and this is to kind of echo Commissioner Boley's comment with regards to Castle, for me, this particular intersection has always been about dollars. I think I'd feel a whole lot different about it if that federal/state money wasn't there. But the application of that money at that intersection, I think, is pretty crucial to my decision.
Well, I mean, you also save on not having to pay lights. I mean, if you put a signal in there, it's going to be a lot more expensive. And the ongoing expense of that signal, that's another benefit of roundabouts. I'm not sure everybody who wants to be fiscally responsible thinks about. The ones that want to be fiscally responsible and don't like roundabouts.
That's a 90-10 match, isn't it? Is that
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Thought so.
So David, the estimate of the cost is $2 to $2.5 million, and that is the entire project, including the roundabout?
Correct.
So the local money that has to come from here is our 10% of the 600,000 plus, and taking that out of the maximum of $2.5 million, so
Yeah.
we're at about $2 million.
Correct. It would reduce the overall cost by $600,000
Okay,
to the
plus
city.
the 10%. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Any other questions?
I like it,
David?
yeah.
Okay, David, thank you.
Thank you.
Public comment on this item?
So my name is Joseph Kenny, and I actually live at that house on the northwest corner. So I have a few questions, I guess, about the overall plan. Just based on this drawing here, it looks like I would lose a decent amount of my backyard and my side yard. Is there an estimate for the amount of property that that would be affected by the roundabout?
Just why don't you go ahead and go
Okay.
through and we'll get answers to your questions, okay?
My other concerns is the roundabout plan set in stone? Is that the only option there for that specific intersection? Is there any alternative option for a stoplight, like something a similar fashion along Iowa and 25th, where it's 2-lane versus the 5-lane going north and south? The other, I guess, comment or concern I had was the numbers of accidents quoted, where it was 7 prior and then 6 for the roundabout that's further south there. Of the 7 that occurred in this intersection, were any of them single car caused by weather or anything like that as well? Or are those all multi-car accidents? Because I've lived there a little over a year and a half and I've only seen 1 multi-car accident.
Okay. David?
So to answer his question about the right-of-way, I don't have a good, I can't give him a precise, accurate square footage of what it would be. The next step for us would be to go through appraisal process, find out what that is, make contact with adjacent property owners, and then work with them to minimize any impacts and then compensate them for any right-of-way that would be acquired with the project. So most of the street itself is the pavement is within the right-of-way. It's the curb and gutter and the sidewalk at the bulb out of the intersections on all four corners, which is outside of the right-of-way. So there certainly will be some acquisition needed and some loss, and the city will go through an appraisal process, get a figure and make a fair offer to the property owner. And we're certainly going to be, if we proceed with this, working with all 4 corners as we would do any other project to mitigate any concerns.
Are those additional trees that are going to be added? It looks like the white ones, I assume. So you're just going to create a whole tree buffer?
Well, I think those are existing trees. Some of them you can't see. You can see the evergreen trees, the aerials from the winter. So the survey picked up trees without leaves. Some of them are pretty small, so the white picture may actually misrepresent the actual size. But we can certainly add landscaping trees. We've done that on other projects. I think we would not be affecting any of the fenced-in portion of the backyard on the house as it appears on this aerial. Does that answer your question on the trees? To the question on the crashes, I don't have the crash reports and the numbers at this intersection with the single car data. I could certainly get that.
The other question about whether or not another stoplight or something can be placed there.
Looked at the street light.
Yeah, and that would, a stoplight is the alternative option to the roundabout. We would not be eligible for the safety funds, but that would be the alternative to removing the 4-way stop and making improvements for the long-term future.
David, how much, okay, so the roundabout is $600,000, is that right, of this project?
Correct.
Okay, so, but if we were to look at any other type, well, the streetlights, the stoplights at that location, would we have to buy right-of-way to place those there, do you know?
Maybe a little on the side roads for Harvard to widen out to have a left turn lane. There might be a little that you would need, but not as much. So, on the side, on the main line, widening out to 5 lanes and having the sidewalks, I think we would be able to get that within the Wakarusa right-of-way, but expanding Harvard to include turn lane, left turn lane, it could be on the border. So it's hard to say. It would be less right-of-way with a 5-lane section and a traffic signal than a roundabout.
Does that answer your question? Okay. Okay.
That will be something I want to look at, though, is the cost difference, to make sure that we're not using all that federal money just to buy somebody's property. and that
Well,
it Actually lowers our cost.
That's a good idea. I mean, we're looking at a $2.5 million project, but essentially a $2 million project. But with, if we were to look at lights there, I'm gonna guess that's a $250,000 or more intersection?
Well, the traffic signal cost would be $250,000 to $300,000.
Okay.
The roundabout itself isn't necessarily $600,000. That's the amount of money KDOT has put to the project. A lot of it's pavement that would get reconstructed, whether it's a traffic signal or a roundabout. Because if you're redoing the intersection with a traffic signal, you're still redoing the pavement itself in the intersection. So it's not $600,000 versus $250,000 to $300,000 for the traffic signal, because that's just the signal equipment and not the pavement itself. So it's the construction cost is pretty similar. I mean, it's going to be I don't have the exact numbers, but it would be pretty similar if you include the pavement for a roundabout plus a little right-of-way versus a traffic signal that includes the
And
pavement.
then you have the ongoing cost of the traffic signal.
Yeah, there's obviously annual maintenance costs, electricity costs, and time to go out and make repairs to things, so.
Okay. Thanks, David. Other public comment? Yeah, please.
Just one brief comment, now that I've disparaged anecdotal evidence versus data, I will provide just a little anecdotal evidence about bicycles and the Inverness roundabout. I ride a lot of bicycle, and the one at Inverness and this one work really good for bicyclists. You can exit, if you ride in the street, which I often do, I go through a single lane roundabout. I merge with traffic and go around, because they never travel more than 15, 20 miles an hour, and I can easily keep up with that, and it works very well. This one I can't. They're going pretty quick, and they're moving around, they're changing lanes inside, so it's a little trickier. So it's the way they're designed, they're really friendly to bicycles. You can easily get off. There's a nice ramp. You can get off prior to and then the crossing is well in from the intersection. So it's easy to cross. You just look to your left, see if somebody's in the roundabout, in the outside lane. If nobody's there, you go right across. So the Inverness roundabout and this one work really well for bicyclists. They're really very friendly to bicyclists.
You said, Terry?
Yeah.
Real quick, you ride in the street there?
Yes, I do both. I ride in the street about half the time. Depends on the street. Wakarusa here is not a bad street to ride on. It has a nice wide lane and a bicycle lane, and we ride. But in other streets, I'll go up on the multi-use path. If there's a multi-use path, I'll often go up on there and ride.
Okay, thank you. Okay, other comment?
Hello, my name's Amanda Summers. I live at 924 Colonial, that corner lot that Joseph was speaking about.
Okay.
And I have a few concerns. One kind of gripe I want to make is that we were not made aware of this by the city at all. The only reason we know is a neighbor put something on our door. And so that's pretty concerning, because as you can see, that that impacts our property quite a bit. So that's kind of disappointing. And as far as the single car accidents at the Inverness roundabout, I don't think that we are going to be able to collect accurate data for that, as most of those aren't going to be reported. So a lot of the accidents that I've seen since living there are people who will get two flat tires because they take the curb too hard, and at that point, nobody carries two spares with them, so they're stuck there for a while obstructing traffic, which is counterproductive. And I see that quite a bit, and like someone in our own family had that happen, so it's fairly common. Also, a point that I want to raise is that one on Inverness, a car went off-road, demolished someone's retaining wall, and wiped out half of their fence. And so that's really concerning to me. That's my biggest concern with safety. I don't know, what caused that accident, but you can drive down and take a look and see that where the fence has been patched up. And I called earlier today and spoke to the project engineer, and he said basically that the sidewalk is encroaching on our fence line. You know, it's pretty close to where our actually fenced area is, so to think that a car, you know, wouldn't be able to hit our property seems unreasonable. Also, I guess, want to draw some sympathy. You know, we were first-time home buyers. We were living in Kansas City for a year, decided we wanted to move back to Lawrence because we love it so much, bought this property, and this, you know, is going to impact our investment. It's not something we would have purchased knowing that this was, you know, in the cards. And I talk to realtors and they just say, you know, it will decrease our property value. You know, people aren't going to want to live this close to the street. You've got noise, you've got the risk of, you know, cars, and yeah, it isn't good for us. But then again, you know, looking at this, you can tell we're the people most affected.
Okay.
Which property do you own, Amanda?
The upper right quadrant.
Okay.
With all the trees.
And how long, when did you buy your house there?
May of 2015.
Okay. When was our application made, David, for this?
In 2014.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess we just missed that, but that's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other comment? Okay. Go back to the commission. I assume that we want to have this at the same time as the other one for final decision. If there is any other additional information, please contact David that you need, or anyone else. He'll be happy to provide it for you. Anything else?
Yeah, definitely want to see Dave working with these homeowners and trying to work out the safest things that we possibly can for their property in the time being.
Okay. Okay, so then September 6th, Tom, you'll go ahead and place these items on the agenda.
Will do.
Okay. Okay, public comment. I guess that was it. Okay. Anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you all very much.
Second.
Motion made and second to adjourn, made by Commissioner Herbert, second by Commissioner Larson. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you all.
It's good to get this as a result.